Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to the first episode of Submission Radio for 2017. It's the 11th of January. Dennis Crowder here with Kasper Ozolowski after a nice, relaxing break over the Christmas and New Year period. Kasper, it's great to be back, but tell me and the fans, how was your break? What did you get up to? What did the Kasper get up to?
It's none of your goddamn business. Just kidding, man. I didn't do a whole lot. I think people don't understand. I think people sort of underestimate like how taxing doing the show and doing this kind of stuff is. I mean, we enjoy the hell out of it, but it is pretty taxing. So I just laid low. I just spent a lot of time with family, something that I don't usually do. My mum lives in Torquay, which is a really amazing beach town. It's right near the ocean here in Melbourne, and so I went down there. We had some just consecutive dinners. It was like I was doing a dinner world tour with a whole bunch of people. My girlfriend, my dad, her family, all these people. So it was great. I basically just spent the last few weeks getting fat and enjoying some downtime, just relaxing, recharging the batteries, and I'm pumped, man. I'm so pumped to be back. It feels good.
Yeah, I've spent the time getting fatter. I mean, what a great time it was eating as many meals as I wanted and not thinking about the horrible, horrible future of a 2017 summer in Melbourne and possibly going on the beach. But yeah, I was over in New Zealand. We did some biking on the beach. We did some fishing. We were in a couple of earthquakes up at the top of a hill where I thought the house was going to come down. And it was just a wonderful time. Everybody over there in New Zealand who I spent time with, just wonderful people. And thank you so much for being so great to me over there. And if people get a chance, go over to New Zealand. It's just a piece of paradise, just beautiful, green, and not ruined by society. So go check it out. But Cass, we are back. This is the first show in 2017. We have a very, very fun lineup for all the listeners to really kick this year off, don't we?
Oh, if you thought we were going to start this show and get sexy guests, you would be absolutely right. Kicking the show off is Julianna Pena, the first cab off the rank. Julianna Pena blowing us up at the end of 2016. Can I please come on your show? We were like, I'm sorry, Julianna Pena, we're busy. You're going to have to do it in 2007. Just kidding. But seriously, Julianna Pena has been penciled in for a long time. And who better to sort of talk about this whole UFC 207 aftermath with? And she's got a lot of interesting things going on with her. She's fighting Valentina Shevchenko. So Julianna Pena is going to be first. Dillon Danis, obviously in MMA circles known as Conor McGregor's training partner, but he's a very, very high-level BJJ grappler. And he was making some waves with John Jones, calling him out. He's got a fight coming up. A match coming up. And, he's tweeting things about UFC London. What's all that about? So there's a lot to talk to him about. Bas Rutten, I mean, the man needs very little introduction. One of our favorite guys to talk to. Everything he says is just absolute gold, and there's a lot of things to break down with him. And then we're going to be doing a massive, juicy breakdown with Damon Martin, aren't we, Dennis?
Yeah, so much to talk to him about. Obviously, we weren't around to talk to you guys about our thoughts on Ronda Rousey, UFC 207, and all of that. So be prepared as we go in there, give you our exact thoughts on what's going to happen, the criticisms that Ronda faces, the criticisms towards her coach, Edmond, what should be happening with her next, if she should go to a new training camp. We also might touch on my Golberg having his last event, and possibly the most important topic to discuss, the Soulja Boy, Chris Brown boxing match. It looks like it's going to be happening in March. Get ready for some Robin Black type breakdowns. We're kidding. We're just going to really talk about nothing and just really give our thoughts on exactly why we may not like both individuals, one individual, and who's going to get their ass kicked. And maybe some scenarios where this thing could really be interesting. So stick around for that because that's going to be a lot of fun. But Cass, I mean, before we jump to the first interview, like you mentioned, the packed show, I just want to remind everybody to jump on, if you have an opportunity, give us an iTunes review. We do really appreciate it. We love reading them. We read them out on the show periodically, and we really do see all of your reviews. Put down what you think of the show if you do enjoy it. It does help us immensely and grow in the ranks and really helps us appreciate you guys even more. So jump on, give us an iTunes review. We love reading them. And also follow us on Twitter at SubmissionAUS. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/SubmissionRadioAUS. And without further ado, Cass, I believe we've got our first guest for 2017 on the line, and you're about to introduce her.
All right, guys. Our next guest is the number 3 ranked UFC women's bantamweight. She is the first ever women's Ultimate Fighter winner and is currently riding a 7-fight win streak, which she takes into a fight against Valentina Shevchenko on January 28th. The always lovely Venezuelan vixen Julianna Pena. Welcome back to Submission Radio. Happy New Year. How are you today?
Happy New Year. Thank you. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm not number 3 ranked anymore. I'm number 2, and technically in my book, I'm number 1.
There you go. New year, and we're already messing up rankings. Look at us. I mean, you got to excuse us, Julianna. You know, we're recovering after a crazy and, a much-needed break over the New Year period, but we got to get into it with you about what exactly you got up to. Tell us, what does a Julianna New Year look like for you, especially with the fact that you've got a fight looming in January?
The New Year looks like training and some more training. You know how it is.
What did you actually do for New Year's? How did you enter the New Year?
I spent it with my boyfriend and his lovely family, and we just ate a bunch of Mexican food and danced all night long, and it was fun. It was awesome. I had some tamales. It was amazing.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Me and Casper, I don't know, we don't really do the resolutions every year. I've been doing them lately, but curious, are you big on the New Year resolutions, and if so, what are yours?
No, I'm not too big on it. I did make a resolution that I would be fighting for the belt and winning the belt and defending my belt, so that was a big one for me. But I'm not, big on, I'm going to hit the gym 6 times a week this year, because it never works out like that.
And I feel like 6 times a year would be a ridiculously low amount for you anyway, so it's good that you don't have to do anything like that. The year, of course, finished off with UFC 207, a card that you yourself had many reasons to watch. Set the scene for us, Julianna. Where did you watch it from?
At home, actually.
That's interesting. Was it a situation where you were by yourself? Did you have your boyfriend and his family there? Set the scene for us.
I did. I had my boyfriend and his family, and we were all gathered around the TV and watching it. So it was a good one. That was a fun time.
You've been chasing this title shot for what seems like an eternity. I mean, when you watched that fight, was it a bit weird, and did a part of you feel like, maybe that should have been you main eventing the end of year card and fighting for the belt?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was funny because I went into the UFC office and I asked Dana for the title shot, and he said, no, we're not going to give it to you yet because Ronda's coming back. And I said, well, you should give it to me because I'll put up a better fight than she will. And he said, no, well, her name's big, it's Ronda Rousey, you're just going to have to, fight one more time and then maybe you'll get the title shot. And so at that point I was frustrated, and I knew I wasn't going to get it. So I just had to accept those terms and conditions. And then when I watched the fight and saw that Ronda laid an egg, I kind of hit the nail on the head as to what I was saying all along, and that she was going to get knocked out. So I was right, and now I look like a genius. So that's great.
Well, you never looked stupid, Julianna. I mean, a lot of people believed you're a genius from everything else that you've done previously. But, I mean, I have to ask you, in the past, we've spoken to you, a lot about this fight, about a potential title fight. How little did it make sense for a fighter coming off a KO loss to be fighting for the belt upon the return? The other thing that made this such an irregular situation was Ronda's decision not to do any media ahead of the fight. As someone who's had instances in the past where you were less than satisfied with the MMA media, just wondering, what did you think of the whole situation?
I thought it was funny, it was like, don't bite the hand that feeds you. The media is the one responsible for making Ronda the superstar that she was and making her, this untouchable force that no one could ever beat, and so I think that it was kind of unusual that she was not going to do any media, but that just goes to show the kind of personality that she has. She's a brat, and she's spoiled, and she's used to getting her way on everything. So once again, it was just one of those things where she was going to get her way and, throw a fit until, she gets her way, and that's exactly what happened. I think it's funny because I was looking back at a post that I had made with MMA fighting, and I said, that spoiled brat has got everything handed to her, and she's getting everything handed to her again. It's bullshit. And I said, never in the history have I ever heard of somebody have a no controversy, brutal knockout, then quit the sport, and then come back and get a title shot right away. I said, the girl's mentally weak, and Amanda Nunes is going to knock her out and expose her. So I think it's funny because I had predicted what was going to happen, and then that's exactly what happened. So no media till the cows come home. It doesn't matter. Ronda Rousey is mentally weak, and she was literally handpicking her fights from the very beginning. And in my opinion, she's the worst girl on the roster. You know, if you take a year off from the sport and you don't train and stuff like that, the sport is going to evolve and it's going to continue without you. And if you don't take any warm-up fight or any sort of tune-up fight, if you will, then you're going to be in a world of hurt. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody is feeling it much more than she is. So, my thoughts are with her. And, every dog has its day. I wish her the best. But at the end of the day, it's what do you think was going to happen?
It's an interesting situation because people are sort of on a couple of boats. Some people saying, Ronda Rousey's done. She can't compete with other women in the division. Other people putting a lot of the blame on her trainer, Edmond. He's had previous situations like in Melbourne where he's gotten a lot of criticism. This fight, though, seemed like it kind of stopped before it even got started as she got stunned very early. What are your thoughts on all the criticism that a trainer, Edmond, and his sort of team gets after another loss?
I think Edmond's great, you know what I mean? I think he's the only one that could possibly have handled that chick in that type of setting and been able to put up with her crap, you know what I mean? So what he's done for Ronda is wonders. I don't think that anybody could have done a better job than him or that anybody would have put up with as much as bull crap as he's put up with besides him. So my hats are off to him. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily his battle. It's Ronda's battle, Edmond can't get in there and fight for her. So that's what's so hard about this sport is live or die by the double-edged sword. You have to be able to perform, like she even said herself, on your worst day possible. And so she wasn't able to perform, and nobody is to blame besides herself. She can't say that she wasn't ready or that she wasn't prepared. She's had all the time in the world to get ready for this fight. So I don't really know. I think that a lot of people come up with a bunch of excuses, but at the end of the day, it's just not your day. And sometimes you just got to give credit where credit is due. And it was Amanda's night. And so that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're giving Edmond a lot of credit here, and that's entirely fair enough. So, to a lot of people saying that, Ronda needs to move to a different camp and sort of change everything, are you sort of not on that boat? Do you think it really wouldn't have made a difference regardless of where she was?
Listen, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's none of my business. You know what I mean? I don't give a crap what she does. Whether she wants to go to Timbuktu or go train Muay Thai in Thailand for a year or, go train on the moon or whatever. That's her business. Train wherever you want, but you're going to have to step inside the octagon and know $3 million, $4 million, $5 million or any amount of money or price that you can put on it is going to take away the fact that mat time is the only thing that's going to speak for itself in the cage and in the octagon. And if you don't have that mat time, no dollar amount is going to fix that. No dollar amount's going to make you standing across the cage from some killer who put their time in the mat, and you're going to say, shit, I wish I would have trained more, instead of, like no money amount or monetary value, I think, is going to take away that feeling from that fighter looking across the cage from a killer ready to take your head off.
And training on the moon, that seems like the next big thing in the MMA world, if it's possible to do. I mean, we've touched on it a couple of times, but I'm just very curious to know, do you think she's got the skills to compete in the division if she did come back? Do you think she could hang in there with a top 10 in the division? Or do you genuinely believe that, I guess the game, like a lot of people have said, have sort of gone beyond her and her skill set isn't as dangerous as it used to be when she first started in the division?
I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is, like I said, that she was mentally weak from the beginning. She was a bully, handpicking all of her fights, and then she got knocked off her block, and that really ruined her. And I think that a second knockout like this is, again, it might have ruined her, but I don't know. Who's to say? Who's to say she doesn't take her $6 million, $10 million, millions and millions and millions of dollars and just ride off into the sunset and flip everybody a bird like she always does? Shit, that's what I would do, maybe.
Amanda Nunes, after the fight, she said that she thinks, obviously, Ronda needs to retire from MMA. Given the history between the two of you, Ronda and yourself, I mean, you told us last time you were on the show that you would have loved the chance to be the one to retire her. Would you be disappointed if you never got that chance to do that, Julianna?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that she was avoiding me all along. I beat her whole team. I ran through her whole entire team on The Ultimate Fighter. When Dana White allowed women into the UFC and she fought one girl on the UFC, I fought 4 girls, and I beat them all, and they were all under Team Rousey. She should have wanted to fight me after I beat her whole team's ass instead of them saying, oh, you're not ready for a title shot. We're going to give you Jessica Andrade instead. And then I would have beat Jessica Andrade, and then they would have said, oh, well, you need a couple more and a couple more. That girl's been dodging me from day one, and she knows it. And that's all I have to say. You know, I think it's very disappointing if she does retire because, yeah, I wasn't the one that was able to dethrone her. But I think that she knows at the end of the day that I am a nightmare matchup for her. I'm a nightmare matchup for any of these girls in this division. And she did not want to get locked in the cage with me, and it's as simple as that.
Well, let's focus on the future and look towards your first fight against Valentina, the first fight of the year against Valentina. First off, why did you accept this fight in the first place? Because given your resume and winning streak, why take this fight instead of waiting for the winner of Ronda and Amanda? Did you have to do it, or was it a personal choice to keep active and keep fighting?
No, you know, I think that they were really wanting me to take this fight, and they kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and kept telling me, oh, well, other girls are going to fight in the division. They're going to pass you up, and they're going to get the title shot if you don't take this fight, you know. And I was going to say, you know, I am not going to allow somebody to step in front of me again and get a title shot ahead of me. So I think that with a combination of a lot of pressure from the UFC, which is fine because I'm a company girl and I want to do what's best for the company, and with a lot of pressure from the fans, them saying that I'm afraid of her, and Valentina herself telling me that I'm afraid of her. You know, it has nothing to do with being anyone. It has everything to do with politics. I deserve a title shot. I've deserved a title shot, but you guys don't think that, or the fans don't think that, so now I'm going to go put my title and put my record on the line again, and I'm going to go once again and show everybody why I deserve the title shot and why I am the rightful champion.
And I mean, a lot of people have been talking about you being the rightful contender for a long time now. I'm sort of wondering what that conversation was like with the UFC. You say they put some pressure on you. Did you express your frustration with not getting that title shot? Did you name any stipulations and what you expect to happen next? Did you say to them, look, hey, I'll take this fight, but, you know, I better get that next title shot? And did they really need to sort of sell you on it? What was the process like?
Oh, yeah, I've been bitching and moaning until the cows come home. They know I'm a firecracker, and they know that I, you know, am hot about it. And so they just kind of laugh it off and say, yeah, okay, take this fight. So I say, okay, whatever. Well, make it worth my while, please. And I think that, you know, not being on a pay-per-view where somebody has to pay $60 to see me fight, or not being on a Fox Sports 1 channel where people are going to have to pay extra for, you know, above basic cable in order to watch my fight, for me to be a main event on Big Fox Channel 3 where it's going to be universal worldwide, everyone's going to watch this fight, was definitely something, and definitely motivating factor for me on why I did take this fight. You know, there's going to be millions and millions of people watching this fight, and those are the type of high profile fights that I want to be in. So that's another reason why I decided to take it.
I mean, it doesn't look like there's any other options but the winner of this fight to have the next title shot. But do you have any guarantees that if you win this, you get the title shot? Did they put any stipulations in your contract or in the deal that guarantee you that title shot next? Or do you sort of still have to take their word on it and hope they come through with it?
Listen, nothing in this business is guaranteed. I'm fighting in the Ultimate Entertainment Championship, and so it's what makes sense entertainment-wise. So whatever, you know, makes sense for them is what's going to happen, because it's been making sense for me to get a title shot for a couple years now, and they still haven't given it to me, and I can't understand why. But I know that, you know, if I win again, there should be no controversy as to why I'm not getting this title shot. And so I'm just putting my good faith in the UFC and being this company girl, and putting, you know, all my trust in the fact that they're going to do right by me. God willing, I win this fight, and that's exactly what I plan on doing.
I'm wondering, yeah, you mentioned an interview you did a while ago, and we were reading the exact same interview, and you mentioned something about the UFC sweeten the deal. Just wondering, was there any other monetary incentives when they gave you this fight as, I guess, sort of like a cushion, like, all right, you're not getting that next title shot, but we're going to give you something extra? And did you have to sort of negotiate for those, or was it something they just offered up front?
No, you know, by sweeten the deal, I mean they're finally putting me on a main event. You know, I got girls that, you know, are in the 115-pound division that are headlining a card, and I'm thinking, why the heck am I not headlining a card? You know, it's things like that.
You know, the saying goes, if you fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. If the UFC don't come through with this title shot and you do win this fight, is this sort of it for you? Can you be bothered dealing with this kind of negotiation fight after fight? Is this sort of the line in the sand that you've drawn?
Listen, that's negative. And I don't feed into that negativity. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna focus on getting my hand raised on January 28th, and that's my main and sole focus.
You spoke to Luke Thomas recently and said that you're obsessed with Valentina Shevchenko and that you think about her morning, noon, and night. Have you ever been this obsessed about an opponent? Is this sort of the way you are with every opponent in every fight?
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, when I sign on the dotted line and another girl signs on the dotted line that they want to fight me, I take it very personally, and I take it highly offense to any girl that thinks that they're out there harder than me. I've been putting in too much work. I've been putting in too much time. I've been dreaming about this for such a long time. You know, if I get to a title shot, that will be a consequence of all these hurdles and all these bumps that I've had to go through. And so right now, my main focus is Valentina, and I am obsessed with her. I think about her all the time. I literally know everything about her, and I've watched literally every single video and nook and cranny that you can dig up on the internet. I know everything about her, and I do this type of research obsessively because I'm obsessed with MMA, and I'm passionate about what I do. And so, yeah, I am obsessed with her, and I'm going to continue to be obsessed with her until I get my hand raised.
We were hoping you were going to say that, because seeing as you scored the Earth for intel on her, what are some fun facts that you can tell us about her? What have you dug up that we probably wouldn't know?
She's a Pisces, which means she's an emotional girl. She's born on March 7th, 1988. Wow. I don't think people born in the Soviet Union have Social Security numbers, so I wasn't able to get that Social Security number set down straight. But I know that she lives in Peru. She loves to dance. She's a phenomenal dancer. She's a 17-time Muay Thai world champion, and she's got some really great decisions under her belt. So. I think that she's a strong fighter.
And this is from her Tinder profile, right?
Yeah, it's either Tinder or Grindr, one of those two.
Oh, wow. Amanda Nunes beat her not too long ago. However, it was a fight that didn't really win too many fans. When you see the way Amanda, obviously the current champ, beat Valentina, does it sort of motivate you? You're obviously very obsessive about this fight, to sort of make your victory more dominant and, you know, make it a bigger statement.
Yeah, you know, I don't think I've ever ran across anybody in the division that was a more dominant fighter than me, you know, so it's just going to be another a notch on the old belt for me, dominating another fight and winning another round and being another dominant round-winning fighter. So I think it's just going to be a great fight, and I expect a great finish as well.
Mm-mm. I mean, a lot of people have tried, and it's obviously easier said than done. Valentina's often had a tendency to nullify her opponent's offense and frustrate fighters. How do you go about making sure that you employ a game plan against her and make it that one-sided fight that you're aiming for?
Yeah, I bite down on my mouthpiece and I come forward and I go get in her face just like I do all these other girls. So the game plan's not changed. It's stick to what you know, and you know how to fight morning, noon, and night, and that's all I'm worried about. You said that if their fight was 5 rounds, Valentina may have beaten Nunes. This being your first 5-round fight, are you doing anything different in preparation, Julianna? You know, I'm a workhorse and I work hard, and I bust my ass every single day, and that's the bottom line. So I'm going to be ready no matter what. January 28th, I will be ready.
I mean, a lot of people know you as a very complete fighter with a strong skill set on the ground. She, like you mentioned, is a 17-time Muay Thai champion. Will you be looking to test your striking against her in this fight? And have you done anything different in preparation in terms of striking for this fight?
You know, I just kind of prepare for all my fights the same, and that's work hard and put your mat time in, and the rest will take care of it for at the end of the day. You know, there's nothing that she's going to be throwing or showing or displaying that I'm not going to be ready for, and I'm going to be ready for whatever she brings wherever the fight goes, and so that's all that matters.
If 2016 has taught us anything, Julianna, is that quiet mouths don't get fed and loud mouths always do. Do you think you'll take the opportunity after the fight when you're in the octagon to get on the mic and, you know, maybe send a particular message? I think Amanda recently set the bar after she beat Ronda. Anything similar in your mind?
The answer is yes, and I won't go into it any further than that.
So something exciting we're expecting, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Julianna. Well, as we let you go, we want to get the official prediction. How do you see yourself getting it done against Valentina on January 28th in Denver, Colorado? Are you going to grind her into mashed potatoes? Because I know this is a big line that you like to use on commentary.
Yeah, I think I'm going to smash her into smashed potatoes this time instead of mashed potatoes.
Well, there you go, upping the ante. Guys, don't forget to follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Venezuelan Vixen. And, of course, check her out against Valentina Shevchenko on January 28th. That will be 29th in Australia due to the time difference at UFC on Fox 23, your first main event. A massive fight, and I mean, this has got to be a title eliminator. We're sick of waiting. We remember a year ago in Melbourne speaking to you about potentially being the next title contender, so we're very excited about this, Julianna. Thank you so much for taking the time chatting with us. It's always a pleasure with you.
Thank you for having me on, you guys. It's always a pleasure. Have a great night.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, it's a pleasure to have our next guest back on the program. You'll see him competing at Chael Sonnen Submission Underground 3 with 2 gold medals at the Nogi Pan Ams. He's also Conor McGregor's grappling sparring partner. I guess you could say he's a new emerging star in the sport of MMA, but always been a star in the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a pleasure to welcome back Dillon Danis to Submission Radio. Dillon, welcome to the program.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's always great when you come on. We know it's obviously a busy period for you, so we appreciate the time. Before we get into everything that's going on, we noticed on Twitter you posted hashtag UFC London with a rather suggestive thinking emoji. Last time we spoke to you in New York, you were deliberating when you'll make your MMA debut. Please explain this cryptic message and if it is indeed to do with your MMA debut.
It's just putting it out there, just putting it out to the UFC that I'm ready to fight on that card. I've been dealing with a lot of negotiations for an MMA fight with money and stuff. So every time I get an offer, I get another offer with even bigger money. So I'm just looking for the right one to kind of, go and make my debut. But I was just putting that out there to the UFC that I'm ready to fight on that card, and it'd be cool to fight with my teammates Makwan and Artem.
I mean, it would be a no-brainer to sign you. You've got a big name behind you and a lot of followers, and people follow your social media and know who you are. When you're talking about MMA organizations approaching you, are you saying organizations outside the UFC have been approaching you, or the UFC has given you a few offers already?
No, just other offers from other organizations, not the UFC yet. If the UFC comes, then I'll be ready.
Is there any interest with these other organizations? Have they given you anything that you've looked at and sort of considered, or are you very sort of, I guess, dedicated to really only the UFC at this point?
I mean, I want to fight. I want to get my debut out there. So sometimes the money's not worth it. I'm not gonna go away from something that I love, my passion, jiu-jitsu, for freaking $700 for a fight or something like that. I'm gonna take the big money fight. So that's why I'm negotiating right now with the bigger organizations. I love jiu-jitsu, and the money has to be right for me to go and switch my training up to MMA.
Just curious, who is contacting you? What kind of organizations are we talking about?
I mean, the bigger ones and the smaller shows, obviously. I did want to fight in New Jersey. I thought that would be cool to fight in my hometown, and then I got another offer. So I can't really say the names just because negotiations are going on and stuff.
Right.
But some of the bigger promotions, yeah, for sure. But I mean, UFC is my goal. That's where the best fighters in the world are, and I want to prove that I'm the best fighter in the world.
Is it a funny situation? Because usually when a fighter starts out his MMA career, he's relatively unknown, and so that $700, I mean, they have no choice but to take it. You have a bit of a name behind you. People really know you, and you have a lot of fans. Is it a funny situation to be in to sort of, want these MMA organizations to pay you, but also be at the beginning of your career in MMA?
Yeah, I mean, but they're offering it. I'm getting offers with really good money, so they know what I bring to the table, so they're offering big. So right now it's just all about making the right decision and talking to my manager and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I have a big following. I have good people behind me. So whatever organization I go to, I'm going to bring a big viewing, and I'm going to bring a lot of hype. So it's their choice, really.
When you say that you're sort of throwing out UFC London, obviously you mentioned some of the benefits of fighting on the card with your teammates. How sort of, dedicated are you to that idea? You say you're throwing it out there. Did you sort of just want to see the fan response and the UFC's response, or is that kind of a goal for you at this moment? That's kind of what you're aiming for?
I mean, if they offered me a fight on that, I would take it 100%. 100% I would take it. I did throw it out there just to see what the fans were thinking and kind of get a little bit of play around with people a little bit. But I mean, I would never lie. If I put that out there and they offer it to me, I'll take it 100%.
What has the contact been like between yourself and the UFC? Have they offered you a fight at all in the past, and have they taken notice? Have you heard anything from the UFC regarding UFC London?
No, not really. I talked to Dan before about some things. We had some ideas and we talked about it, but nothing's really come to fruition with it yet. But I'm just getting bigger and bigger, and my name's getting bigger. I'm winning jiu-jitsu tournaments. I'm submitting everybody, so it's just gonna build up. It's not gonna go down. It's just gonna build more, and then the UFC's gonna have to come. For
sure. You say you've spoken to Dana White. You mentioned before that you and Dana, you've known each other for a while. You've got a bit of a relationship. What kind of ideas are we talking about? What kind of vibe are you getting from him as far as sort of his excitement levels to signing you? Do you get a vibe like he's got big plans for you?
No, yeah, 100%. I think he would. I mean, I understand where it's hard to sign a fighter that's 0-0. So, I mean, obviously, maybe I go get a couple fights first, but if it comes, he comes. We talked about some stuff about excited for you to be my boss and stuff like that. Just a lot of ideas here and there. Usually we talk, it's brief because it's after fights and stuff, So usually just some brief things, but he's always been really cool with it and always encouraging. So, I mean, he knows what I want, and I'm gonna go get it.
Has he tried to talk to you about doing The Ultimate Fighter? I know sometimes he uses that as a show to sort of get fighters into the UFC. And would you be open to doing that? Because, it's a difficult sort of situation to be in. I mean, Conor has been a coach on one of the seasons. A lot of fighters, some fighters like it, some people don't. Would you be open to that experience if that was the only way Dana White saw you coming into the UFC without getting those couple of fights first?
Yeah, I would do that. I think, yeah. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I already had 10 Ultimate Fighter fights basically, because for that Vegas, when Conor was fighting Diaz in Vegas, we used that gym and we had live fight days every week. So I basically have 10 fights on Ultimate Fighter, and that's what me and Conor even talked about. If we ever got an Ultimate Fighter, I already had freaking 10, 15, 20 fights, because we had live full on fights every week in that same exact cage. So. If anything, I'm ready for it.
I feel like that'd be a great opportunity because you've been on the show before. You're not foreign to the concept. You'd probably be a lot more comfortable than some of the other guys. You're a big personality. It's a great way of 12 or 13 episodes to sort of get your personality out there, get more MMA fans on sort of your side and your bandwagon. Just quickly though, you mentioned before the Dana White, him saying maybe getting a couple of fights. Where does he sort of stand on that? Did he say anything to you like, look, Dillon, we want you to get a couple of fights before you come to the UFC? Or did you get a vibe? Did he say anything like, look, if you're willing to jump to the UFC for your first fight, that's a possibility. We can do that. There
was nothing said exactly on the fights and stuff. I'm just seeing it from my point of view. I mean, I understand what he's probably thinking. It's hard to sign someone that's 0-0, but with the fan base I already have and my name continuously growing, I don't see why not. If they don't want it now, they're gonna eventually see. I mean, I'm gonna keep submitting everybody in jiu-jitsu, and then eventually it's gonna be inevitable where they're gonna have to put me in there, and I'm gonna have to, take out all the divisions.
I mean, so much stuff to get to and talk about. There's a notion out there that beginning your MMA career is not a good idea due to the fact that you don't get a chance to get a feel for the sport and the experience on smaller shows, and you're fighting very tough competitors from the get-go. But you just mentioned, obviously, you've had a lot of live fight experience, like with the team in the house for the Ultimate Fighter. We have seen fighters really hurt their career by coming to the UFC too early. However, do you ever worry about that sentiment of getting to the big show too quickly? And do you ever think about those few negatives that people talk about?
I don't like to really think about that stuff too much. I mean, obviously, I'm not dumb. I want to do my career right, and I want to make sure I do it well, and that's why I have really good people around me. I have good coaches, I have good friends, good mentors. So obviously they would tell me what I need to do, and I mean they always give me good advice. So that's where I kind of put my trust in, is the people around me. I know they're not yes men. I have a lot of good people around me, and they tell me the honest truth. So if my coaches say I can go and take out the UFC, I can go take out the UFC. So I always, just listen to the people around me that I trust.
You mentioned potentially fighting Sage Northcutt, but now that he's lost again, is there someone else that's on?
That interview was they put that article out after I said that before the fight, and everybody's like, why are you calling out a fighter that lost? And I was like, it's kind of bullshit. The MMA fighting interview was before Sage fought, And what I said is, if he wins, I would like to fight him. And then everybody was like, "Oh, you're calling out a loser," like all this stuff. I'm like, that's kind of BS. I didn't say anything about it, but I called out Sage before that fight, and I said if he wins that fight, I would like to fight him. And I was joking around saying he's an easy fight, just to because in my mind he's an easy fight, and maybe in other people's minds. And now he's actually an easy fight. So now it looks like I was trying to actually get an easy fight, which is a funny thing. But yeah, that was before. Anybody in the 155 or 170 really. It doesn't matter to me, honestly. I don't know. Who do you think I should fight?
How about? All right. Well, you know what? We'll throw this out there. This is a little crazy. We were sort of throwing this idea around the other day. Maybe not as your first fight, but we were talking about you potentially versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? Hear us out. Yeah. Obviously, he's 24-0, but the theory here is he's this guy that people just look at as one of the best grapplers in the UFC, definitely in the division. People are just, I don't want to ever say anyone's terrified of him, but he is a terrifying grappler. I think one day, you versus Khabib, that's a dream fight. What do you think about that?
That would be awesome. I would love to do that. His hands aren't that good, and he's a grappler, so it would probably be a grappling match. And I feel like I could submit him. His jiu-jitsu is good, but it's not very technical. He's a little sloppy, so I feel like I would be able to finish him. But that could happen. But I'm not stupid either. I'm not gonna go into the UFC and probably fight Khabib my first fight. But down the road, that would be a good matchup. I feel. And he's not gonna be undefeated anymore if he fights Conor. So I'll be fine to give him another loss.
Well, let's talk about this matchup between Khabib and Tony Ferguson. It looks like it's going to happen for an interim belt. What do you think about that matchup? Who do you believe will be fighting McGregor next?
That's a tough one. They're both tough, but I think Khabib is going to win. I think Khabib will dominate him on the ground. And Tony's a good fighter. He's very scrambly too. So it's actually a really interesting matchup. And I'm pretty good at picking winners about fights, but this one, I'd probably go with Khabib. But it is a toss-up, though, because they're both super scrambly. I know Tony's going to win the exchanges on the feet, but we'll see if Khabib's going to be able to take him down and hold him down. Tony's, he's a good wrestler, and he scrambles really well and has really good chokes.
This is a fight that we've been wanting to see for a long... Sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, I'm just saying I think Khabib is on a roll, too, which always helps. He's undefeated, and he wants to go for the belt, so sometimes it's hard to, beat a guy like that. So I think Khabib probably be on a roll, but it doesn't really matter because he's going to have to fight Conor.
It's going to be such an exciting fight. And obviously, the way people look at this matchup, assuming he beats him, it's going to be Conor versus Khabib. People think that, if Khabib fights Conor, he will be able to dominate him on the ground while Conor will be able to dominate him on the feet. What
happened to Eddie doing that, though?
Well, there you go.
People say that, people said that Eddie was going to do that, and Eddie couldn't come close to taking Conor down. And Nate couldn't come close to taking Conor down, they all think they're going to do something until they get in there. And I train with the guy every day when I'm out there in Ireland, so I know what he's capable of, and that's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because a lot of people sort of really giving Khabib, a lot of credibility on the ground, and he's a really, really good grappler. But when we watch Khabib fight, it's different to when someone like you watches Khabib fight because you're able to really see all the intricacies of what he's able to do. You being an extremely high-level grappler, what do you see when you see Khabib do his thing, like in his last fight against... in his last fight, UFC 205, are you impressed with what he's been able to do? Do you think he's a puzzle that's difficult to figure out on the ground?
I respect it 100%. That's what I want to do. I want to go and dominate right on the ground, so I respect it. It's not easy what he does. But it's actually a funny story. Me and him had a little bit of a beef when I was younger, when I was 16, I think, or 16 or 17. He used to come to a place in Jersey that I used to train because his manager was the coach of my gym. And he used to wear that stupid shirt that said, if Sambo was easy, it would be called jiu-jitsu or something. I think that's what he wears, right? And I said, okay. I said, okay, let's do a grappling match then and see how easy jiu-jitsu is. And then never came to fruition. I don't know what happened, if they told him or if they didn't tell him. But I told the guy, I said, you tell him that I said, let's see how easy jiu-jitsu is, and I'll freaking show him. So that's a stupid shirt he wears.
I'm just curious, did you ever sort of come face-to-face to Khabib, get a chance to speak to him at all, or roll with him at all, or do anything with him at all, or was it just sort of through the team?
No, just through the team. I never got to train with him. At the last weigh-in, all his Russian friends were staring me down like they want to kill me. But I don't know. That's just how they are, though. But I don't know.
Wow, that's crazy. Have you had a chance to sort of Obviously he was there at UFC 205 as well, and you would have been there as well. Did you ever get a chance to sort of speak about that, or have you guys, had any words, not necessarily negative, but, had any conversations recently?
No, not recently. No, I haven't talked to him. I know him and Conor had a little confrontation, but I wasn't there for that.
Wow, that's crazy. I feel like this dream match that we just theorized before, it's just added a new layer of depth. The rivalry's been going on for years.
That would be a good one. But we'll see. It'll be the first time you see Khabib on his back.
I feel like you should be wearing a T-shirt at the weigh-in when Conor McGregor's weighing in. If he does fight Khabib, that says if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was easy, it'd be called Sambo, and just see what he does. So to flip the script on him a little bit, Dillon. But I mean, let's talk a little bit about if that matchup does happen between McGregor and Khabib. I mean, you mentioned how good McGregor is on the ground and how you know what he's capable of. How would you see that fight going? A lot of people predicting that McGregor would not come out before it even gets to the ground. Is that how you see it going? What's your prediction for that one?
He's too easily hit. If you saw in the Michael Johnson fight, he was getting like wobbled and rocked, like every time they were on the feet. So I mean, Conor's gonna pick him apart like he does all the wrestlers. He hits you from everywhere. He kicks you in the stomach, and like people don't see those shots on TV, like some of the teep kicks and some of the kicks to the stomach, but those take the wind out of you. And when you're basically have to take someone down, it puts a different kind of feeling in your stomach and in your gut when you have to take the guy down. The guy's beating you up on the feet, and when you go to the ground, he's elbowing you. So I think Conor, put them away in probably 1 or 2 rounds with strikes.
You sound like you're a man who's speaking from experience. Have you had to feel those shots when you're sparring Conor McGregor?
Yeah, of course. He's an animal. So yeah, I felt the shots many a times.
Oh man, I imagine it's not fun at all. When you're not obviously taking teep shots, you guys obviously have a great relationship. You guys hang out a lot, during training camps and doing stuff outside the gym. How would you describe your friendship and sort of the influence that he's had over you? I'm wondering how long has it been now that you guys have sort of been teammates?
I don't know how long it's been, since probably like a month or 2 before the Diaz fight. So
wow.
I'm not too sure. But I mean, our friendship, I think we're really close. We're good friends. I always say, like, we just have each other's backs, and we still talk a lot, even when I'm not in Ireland. And I know we're just good friends and stuff. It's just a cool friendship. And he does have an influence on me, of course. Yeah, he's someone I look up to. He's one of my idols, so it's super cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, what would you say is the best advice that that you've ever received from him regarding to your potential MMA career that's about to kick off? I mean, he obviously sees what you're capable of. He must be excited to see you begin your career in MMA. Has he ever given you any sort of pieces of wisdom or anything that stands out in your mind?
I don't want to talk about all this stuff he gives me. I mean, that's personal, but he has told me if you want to do it, you can do it. So, and I know he's one of the most honest people I've ever met. So he wouldn't lie to me. So he always told me if you want to do it, you can do it, and I have your back 100%. So, I mean, that's encouraging to hear from someone that you look up to a lot.
Yeah, what a guy to have in your corner. Let's talk about Submission Underground 3. There was a poll out by Flow Combat about who John Jones should compete against at the next event, and most people, they voted for you. Were you disappointed when you found out that the matchup couldn't come together and didn't want to verse you?
Yeah, I was disappointed because I wanted to go and show him, because he's trying to act like I'm smaller than him, and that kind of got me mad because I've beaten guys way bigger than him and way more skilled than him in jiu-jitsu. So, but at this point, from the video that I saw of him, he looked like he was a little scared. So I kind of don't want to keep bothering him. I don't want to be a bully and push him into it. So I'm just gonna leave him alone for now. He doesn't seem like he wants to do it. He seems scared. So I just let him do his own thing.
You mentioned that video. What did you think about him? I mean, he said that you asking him to beg you via Twitter was a douche move that turned him off from wanting to compete against you. And he also said that he believes you being smaller means he doesn't have much to gain from the match. What did you make of that?
I don't know how you can call him a douchebag when you do some of the things he does. It doesn't really make sense to me. I actually like John Jones. I don't think I have nothing against him. At the end of the day, all this stuff is business, and I respect him. So, but I mean, you can't call someone a douchebag from the things that he's done. That doesn't make any sense. And me being smaller than him in the last Polaris, I beat a guy that's a world champion and probably weighs about the same as him or maybe heavier, and has been doing jiu-jitsu since he was probably 5 years old in Brazil. So, doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you see it, you could see in his voice he's kind of trembling and kind of like trying to think of like excuses to make. So it's just that he doesn't want to lose.
What did you mean by that tweet, by the way, when obviously everybody's challenging John Jones and then you put yours out there and it really sort of lit a fire, and we were looking at the retweets. I think it was by far the most. When you said beg me, obviously we've seen Conor McGregor do that, but what exactly did you mean by that?
In jiu-jitsu, no one knows who he is. He doesn't have anything in jiu-jitsu. He's a subpar grappler, and I'm the big name in jiu-jitsu. So I was telling him to beg me if he wants a big money fight.
He had a quick victory over Dan Henderson, but how do you believe a match between the two of you would go?
Stop. The Dan Henderson. I love Dan Henderson. He's a legend, but come on, that's not even. I'm pretty sure everybody knew that was going to happen. I mean, he's like 45 years old, and he's. I don't think he even has a guard. And like, if you imagine putting him on his back, it'd be easy. And I don't understand how like they even put that matchup together, or even make it people think that it was going to be competitive. But I think with a match with him, I think I would submit him in under the 8 minutes. He's too sloppy with his body and the way he moves. I think I would catch him pretty easily, actually. He's a good athlete and stuff, but I can see him disengaging a lot and not coming forward because, and when you come into like a black belt, a high-level black belt's card, it's not the same as MMA.
Wow, I know you say you're going to leave him alone for a while, but I hope one day that matchup gets put together because that'd be a lot of fun. Let's talk about your current challenger in AJ Agazarm. I mean, he's a decorated grappler, winning such comps as the Pan Am No-Gi Championship in 2013, the World No-Gi Championships in 2014. What do you think about him as a matchup?
Well, he's a good grappler, but he doesn't. It's a mismatch. It's a mismatch, and he's gonna see it's a mismatch. So I'm gonna submit him pretty easily. I feel. I mean, he's too sloppy too. He's small and he's gonna get mauled. I'm gonna play with him. I swear.
I mean,
he's gonna be to try to not get tapped by me. That's gonna be his victory. That's what he's going in looking for a win. That's gonna be his win.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to be watching this event. You just mentioned that it'll probably be pretty quick, but how do you see yourself winning this? Do you see you submitting him pretty quickly in the event, or do you think it's going to go out longer into the matchup to see who wins?
I feel like I'll catch him, but the thing with him, he's a very good staller. He's made his career off stalling. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, that's the thing that these guys see my submission skills now. They don't want to engage, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but I'm prepared for that. But if he wants to come and play fire with fire, we'll see how fast it goes. But I know he'll just stall.
I'm wondering, are you excited about this matchup? Because it seems like obviously you're going in there very confident. You don't really sound like you're sort of facing the biggest challenge. Is he the guy that you wanted originally, or is this just kind of
I want John Jones, but I mean he's fine. I mean he's talked a lot about me in the past. He's posted some stuff about me, so he thinks he's better than me. If you think you're better than me, I'm going to show you that you're not. So that always excites me when someone thinks they could beat me, because I feel that I'm the best.
A lot of people excited for what 2017 is going to bring from Dillon Danis. I mean, you mentioned earlier on, for you to give up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and doing the comps, the money for MMA would have to be pretty reasonable. If that money does come through, if that offer does happen, will you be primarily focusing on MMA in 2017, or will you still be juggling grappling at the same time?
If it's the UFC, I would say I would go full force and stop jiu-jitsu. But if I'm doing like a local show or something like that, I'd probably do both.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Exciting times. Well, there you go. I mean, UFC London.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Like, the thing is, like, right now with jiu-jitsu, my name's out there. I'm trying to go and accomplish my goals. I'm getting big money fights for grappling. So, like, why should I go in MMA unless they're going to make me a good offer? You have to make it enticing for me. So that's what I'm saying. Well,
there you go. In other words, translation: show me the money. So we hope this comes out.
And I bring the people to watch, so it's not like I'm fucking delusional or something. I mean, if I go and fight something, everybody's gonna watch. Either they want me to lose or they want me to win. I don't really give a shit, but I'm gonna bring people to watch.
Yeah, polarizing figure. It reminds me of someone, if I can say that. Dillon, before we let you go, I mean, a lot of things happened in 2017. Potentially MMA debut, hopefully MMA debut, maybe even at UFC London. Before we let you go, Dillon, the most important question: your name on social media is Pablo. Why is that? Yeah. What's the story there?
That's up for interpretation. I'll just leave it to that. But I'm pretty sure it's pretty obvious, Maybe it's Pablo Picasso. There's a lot of Pablos.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was thinking Escobar, but that's okay. We just won't talk about it.
Maybe. You can be whoever you want to be. But yeah.
Well, before he gets a role in Narcos, he has a big year in 2017 in the world of MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. Make sure to follow Dillon on Twitter and Instagram at Dillon Danis. You won't regret it. A lot of fun there. Watch him compete at Submission Underground 3 on January 29th, exclusively via Flow Combat. Now, sign up and don't miss out. These guys have been doing great stuff. And Dillon, I mean, how much fun is it for us to have you on every time? We really appreciate the time. We're excited to see what happens. And man, 2017 could be the year of Dillon Danis. We're excited to see what's going to happen next.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it so much.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Our next guest is one of the sport's biggest personalities. You can hear him weekly on his podcast, Rutten and Ranello, a man of many hats, a former UFC heavyweight champion, three-time King of Pancrase openweight champion, and now UFC Hall of Famer. Joining us back on the show is one of our favorite people to chat to in the world, the one and only Bas Rutten. Bas, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the program. How's it going?
Happy New Year. Yeah, to you guys as well. Awesome. Doing great.
Well, what was it like for you entering the new year, calling the fights at World Series of Fighting 34 in New York? We have to ask you. It'd be an interesting experience.
It was awesome, just to be in Madison Square Garden, at the place there. I really enjoyed being there. And the fights, there were just some really crazy fights that we had on. I think the people really enjoyed it. I think also the people who watch it at home on TV would say, yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah, you had 4 title fights. You had all the big names there, Madison Square Garden, New Year's Eve. What would you say was the moment of the night for you?
Well, of course, the main event was a crazy fight between Gaethje and
Firmino.
And Luis Firmino, of course, Buscapa. I always come like it. They should never give him that nickname Buscapa because it's too much Brazilian, and I think that's his name.
Yeah.
So no, that was a crazy fight for Buscapa to come out and just connecting with every single shot he pretty much threw. I think that was pretty amazing for taking it also on the short notice. He went through there. Of course, Gaethje stopped him at the end, and he had him. But still, it was a really tough fight for Gaethje. I mean, he got it a whole bunch of times, and he needs to watch out for that in the future. I think it's a thing that he can afford. He doesn't care to get hit, but it's simply not a good thing to get hit. And of course, Marlon Moraes. I mean, that was crazy a fight, but it ended kind of weird with that knee injury from Silva, I believe. Yep. John Fitch, Jake Shields, that was as we would call it, if we want to keep it political, it was a very methodical fight.
Yeah.
They knew both that they couldn't make a mistake. And I really enjoyed David Branch, our 2-division champion. I think he did a great job against Lewis Taylor, who came in to fight, and he put the hurt on him. But at the final round, he got him in a rear naked choke. Branch did. So he kept his belt. So that was really nice as well. Jake Yoon and Shmelino Rama. I like Rama a lot. I always talk with the guys. He always wants to learn. He's now at 205 instead of a heavyweight. So he's even faster. And he did a great job against Jake Yoon, who's an animal. He's a strong puncher. But he stopped him in the second round. So that was cool also.
So many great moments. Now, we have to ask you, what did you do later that night to actually celebrate New Year's? I mean, you're in Madison Square Garden. You've just finished up. You're in the heart of New York. So many crazy things are going on. What does Bas Rutten do to keep celebrating New Year's?
Bas Rutten was in his business class seat flying to Rome. That was what he was doing. Probably sleeping at the time.
Wow. So you were flying to Rome, huh?
Yeah. I had my family from California flying to Rome. And we were there... having just a great time.
How long were you there in Italy?
We came back on the 6th. So we were there for 5 days, I'd say. And, visiting everything. The first thing we visited, of course, was the Colosseum. We wanted to see that. We walked the same route that the gladiators had to walk before when they would shout to the Caesar or whoever one was there. We about to die are saluting you. We who are about to die salute you.
Wow.
I mean, we were right there. It was the craziest thing, and you find a lot of things out about the Colosseum. I never knew it was a wooden floor. The whole floor was wood, and it was just sand on top. And this way they could have these traps in there, or these lions come up suddenly from the ground, like you see in Gladiator.
Yeah.
You know, when they come out of the ground. That was based on all real history. It was crazy, but I had no clue. I thought it was just a stone floor, and maybe there were like 2 traps of those like that. But they were apparently they were everywhere.
Wow, yeah, traps under the floor. Sounds like a good idea for a future MMA promotion. Now, calling the fights on New Year's Eve over there in New York, did it remind you of calling fights in Japan back in the Pride days? Because those must have been some crazy times, especially when you did that over the New Year's Eve period.
You know, yeah, Japan was just a different thing, man. Japan was also that if you would start a show, you better bring a Gatorade bottle for under the table if you have to go to the restroom. Because you're going to be there for 7 hours or 8 hours, you know, and there's no time to run in a 45 or 48,000 people arena trying to find a restroom within a minute. It's not going to happen. So
did you ever have to do that, Bas?
I did it once.
Wow.
I always had it with me. Yeah, I did it once. And it's cool because there's a little carpet over, you know, so you can just pull that over. You you shift a little bit forward on your chair, and then, well, you got to make it work, right? I mean, that's what we do.
Did your commentary partner in crime, did Stephen Quadros or did Morarella, did you ever tell them what you were doing, or were you just like, hey, keep talking and don't look down?
Yeah, no, I think it's never a good idea to draw attention, you know, especially against a crazy guy like Quadros or Mauro, because they will mention it.
He'll start commentating on it, play by play.
Well, it's going in, ladies and gentlemen. It's going in. Oh, this is not the end. It looks like he's going for the end, for the final few seconds.
Yeah. Mamma mia.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yo, 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 and away we go.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many funny times. I mean, it would be a crazy situation to be in. Any other crazy or epic stories that you remember from commentating those New Year's Eve shows? Anything crazy that stands out in your mind apart from that?
Or even just like celebrating New Year's that same night. I mean, you're in Japan. That must have been some crazy celebrations, right?
Yeah, you know what? I was there was one time we were at the after party, because they always right away in the Saitama Super Arena, wherever we were, they had this special room for all the fighters and the coaches and everybody else, and you know, there was of course alcohol available, and I remember that I could drink a lot of beer at the time, and suddenly I'm drinking this beer really fast, and this Japanese guy walks over to me and he says, I want you to do a competition with Mr. Antonio Inoki, who's the fastest in drinking. And I said, I don't want to do that. And he go, why don't you want to do it? I said, I don't want to embarrass him. Of course, that's my, I call it reverse psychology, because now I know it's going to be on for sure.
Yeah.
And of course it was. So he, Rico Rodriguez, and myself, we had like I think it was almost like a liter beer in a glass, a big glass. And we had to start all at the same time, and whoever finished first was going to be the winner. Now, I finished first, and I put the glass down. Then Antonio Inoki, he finished his second, and then finally Rico, he drank it all. He put the glass down. At the moment he puts the glass down, he threw up everything that he So, but I said it, I was going to be the winner, and I was.
Oh, well, there you go. Regardless of what happens, doesn't matter who throws up, as long as you win, right?
Keep it in. It's very important.
Oh, man, we would have loved to be a fly on the wall for all those crazy Japanese experiences. We saw that you've also been, random topic change, we saw you've been doing a lot of other things to keep busy as well, Bas. You appeared on Kevin James's show, Kevin Can Wait, where you play somebody's intimidating son by the name of Rudka. Sounds hilarious already. What can you tell us about this?
Not a lot, because it's I don't want to give it away, but it's really funny. Yeah, it's the neighbor. I think they did the translation wrong. I'm her cousin, but yeah, if you look at the TV guide, it says son, but I'm the cousin. She lives next door to Kevin, and they have a big tree in the yard, and the tree is always blocking the sun for their pool. So he's going over there to see if she can make. If he can make sure that the tree is going to be gone, because he wants the sun. But he tries to, he starts a little bit of an intimidation thing, and then she calls Rutger in, and he thinks it's a dog. And from that moment on, you got to see it yourself. It's hilarious. It's really funny. It will air next Monday. I saw. So next Monday, on CBS. Is it CBS? Yeah, CBS.
Yeah.
Kevin can wait. It's a real fun episode. We had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, as most people know, Kevin is a longtime MMA fan, and you guys did the MMA movie together. Here Comes the Boom. He also trained at Mark Delgado's gym for a number of years. You guys have spoken and hung out. Do you guys ever still train together these days?
No, training has been a while because we train if I'm there, we train like weights and we do stuff like that and in the pool and his crazy things. He's got always the newest things like a plunge bath, which is thinking 40 degrees or so. And those guys, we will all have competitions going on who can stay the longest in. And he's very competitive, man. He's hilarious. Everything he does, he's a phenomenal athlete. Like people go, hey, is this a big guy? I'll challenge. Well, you saw him in Here Comes the Boom. You know what he does? That was all him. It was not sped up. It was nothing, lifting up Krzysztof Szczynski. At the end, it was at a cable. But you know what I remember? I remember when they were rehearsing it, he stopped the whole production, and because there was a lot of extras were there. And he says, can everybody's attention? I just want you guys to show this before. Otherwise, the word goes out that I would not able to do it. And he lets Krzysztof get him in an armbar. He lifts him up above his head. He puts him back down. Then he did it again. And then he did it for a third time. He said, I just want you guys to know because now they're going to bring in the cable because it needs to go in slow motion. He says, and otherwise people are going to say, oh, he cannot really do it. But you just saw. And I was very happy that he did that because that was exactly what the people were saying. Oh, he could never do that. I said, oh, he actually did it 3 times in a row. So...
What a beast, man! I reckon it'd be such a fun time working with Kevin. You've actually been doing a lot of things, Bas. I mean, you've done so many things over the years. You've done obviously MMA, pro wrestling, commentating, TV hosting, acting. You've got your podcast now with Mauro Ranallo. We noticed now you can add writer to the list. We see you've been writing articles down at champions.co, which is a great website. I'm just wondering, how did you get involved in that? What made you want to do it?
Well, they just contacted me and they asked me if I was interested in working with them. And so I said, let me check out your posts and what the website does. And I like what they're doing, There's never like negativity or stuff like that, And if everything is honest and the post looks great, yeah, why not make that combination? I know the Rick Lee for a long time already. He came on the show a few times, watching the show. And so he said, hey, would you be interested in working with us? And I said, yeah, I would love to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you did a great article on Ronda Rousey and what she can do to have a successful return to MMA, and you even suggested and explained why she should train with Wayne Ludwig. A lot of people are saying that regardless of what changes she makes, her days as champion or top contender are over. What do you think? Have people figured her out too much, or can she make enough improvements to be the champion again?
Well, it's a crazy thing. I think, for her in training camp, I think she was doing everything right. I truly believe that, because she heard her coach Edmond was saying, use head movement. So they worked on head movement. It's just, and I always tell this to people, and I probably told you guys many times as well. It's when everything works in a nice environment, like in the gym, without pressure, yeah, you can do a lot of stuff. But once the pressure is on, a lot of these things disappear. And I think in the back of her mind now, there was too much going on for her. Everything was riding on this fight. Think about it. I mean, her career could be over now. And also her acting. Roadhouse, I don't think that's going to happen anymore now after this happened. You see what I mean? And should it be like that? No, it shouldn't be like that. But the world works like that. And that means that once you start losing, well, you're not so interesting for movies anymore as well. So she kind of knew that going in. And I think it was a lot of pressure. And then when she got hit the first time, that threw her right back into the whole fight. And even before that, the way she came out, there was no head movement. There was no nothing. Everything was the same as it was before. It was almost like you're just locked up, and that's what I wrote also in that blog. She gotta get rid of that whole angry look face thing. I mean, it's too much. It's almost like you're trying to convince yourself that you gotta be angry or something. But what it really does for you, it locks you up. It locks the body up. Anger, you cannot use anger, man. Controlled anger you can, but you want to stay away from the anger because it locks the fluidity up. You don't see punches coming. All that stuff what I'm saying right now is exactly what you saw. And I truly believe it is because the mindset is too aggressive. Aggressiveness, as I always say, Well, calmness beats aggressiveness 9 out of 10 times. I truly believe that. The person who's calm and calculated, he can figure things out. Just like she was in judo, she needs to find that. Now, and I think that in training she found it, and she felt great, and everything works. But we all know, training is not doing the same thing as fighting. Otherwise, we would have seen way more fighters, and way more other champions in other organizations, because then everybody can do it. Then it's easy. But it's the pressure. And the last time the knockout, she's very competitive. In her mind, she cannot lose this fight. Those are all really bad things to bring to a fight if you have to compete, because they will lock you up. And I truly believe that's what happened with her.
What do you think sort of would be, I guess, the solution and what would need to happen in order for her to sort of come back and sort of have a better performance? Because you make a good point. Like, obviously everybody is giving their opinion on Edmond. Everybody's saying that she needs to move camps, go somewhere else. You sort of look at Edmond's record with his other fighters and they're not successful, but I guess it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, that theoretically she may have been doing great in training and then coming into the fight it sort of fell apart. So what do you think is the solution? Do you think she still needs to change camp, or do you think maybe she can keep having success by staying with Edmond? What do you think needs to happen?
Well, it's all up to her if she wants to stay there. But if you look what Dwayne Ludwig did with the whole Alpha Male camp, and look at the footwork of all these guys, then I say that will be really good for her to have footwork like that. Now, and if Edmond can make a replica out of that, then I say, yeah, you can stay with it. If you feel comfortable there, well, then stay with him. But she needs to fight, and she needs smokers. She cannot fight on a big kickboxing event. First of all, it's the talent is way too high there. And second of all, the UFC, the contract will never allow it. But it never says anything about smokers. Phil Brooks did it, right? CM Punk, he fought a couple of smokers. And I think that is something she needs to do. She needs to fight it contained, though. I don't think that, do it in front of an audience, because it's going to attract too much people, and which would be good for her. But start with just in a gym. Walk into a gym. Only let the owner know of the gym in the beginning that you're going to bring her, so people don't find out. It's not going to be posted right away. Have people ask for respect here, say, hey, let's keep this, let's not tell anybody. And I know it's going to be very hard to do, because, they're hard to find honest people, but they should be there. But she needs to fight. She needs to fight under pressure, whether it's a smoke or whatever it is. And if she starts doing well at that, then I say, yeah, jump back in and start doing that. And otherwise also go wrestle a little bit more. I don't know if they already do that. I don't think so, because she's really good. She needs to look for a clinch. But I think that if you give a talented athlete like Ronda Rousey, if you let her work with wrestlers and she suddenly starts shooting for single and double legs, I think that throws everything. She becomes a complete different fighter. She has a longer reach of going for a takedown. Now she needs a clinch. Then she can actually shoot in and she can cover a little bit more distance. So maybe that's going to help her as well, especially when an opponent comes to you, start firing with power shots. That's when they plant their feet. Then it's better to go for a double or a single leg, but to shoot low, to lower yourself and shoot straight forward. Then try to look for a clinch, because you're going to get hit.
I mean, a lot of people talking about the fact that she can't hang in there with the other women in the division. What are your thoughts on the subject? I mean, do you believe that the game has passed her by, or do you believe that she could, hang in there with a lot of the top 10 ladies in the division if she comes back?
Yeah, I think she can. If she gets her head straight, that's the whole thing. But it's getting the head straight. Everything that she's been doing for the last 2 years, I mean, the way she treats other fighters and people and all the stories you hear, you go like, you're going to have to change that, Become, you got to make a complete 180. Be a happy person. Be, all the aggression in the gym, if it's there, get rid of those people. If people are screaming, like in my dressing room before a fight, if somebody would say, oh, you got to knock his head off his head, that he's out. He's going to go out right away, because we tell him that before. If this starts, if you start saying things like that, we put you out of the room. We don't need that. We need jokes. We need fun. We're playing cards. We're playing whatever video games. We're having fun. That's what you need to do. You need to relax. You don't need to think about the fight. You did that for the last 10 weeks. Don't worry about that. That will come out automatically. Right now, you need to be calm. And the more calm you are, the better your body responds to all the how do you say it? All the things that you tell it to do. That your brain tells it to do. And if you're angry and locked up and you hit yourself in the face and doing all these things, it stops the fluidity. It stops everything. It stops that great conversation between the brain and the body. relax. And that means she has to do that in training, in her personal life. If she has to make amends with people that she said things to or something, even when she thinks, oh, that was not that bad. But if other people say it's bad, trust me, it's bad. Then start making amends, start lightening up, be happy. I would think like in the early days, she came out more relaxed, go back to the time when you thought that mixed martial arts is fun. Now, you have to understand also, we are not Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey is like, I'm a glimpse of Ronda Rousey, meaning by how popular she is. I mean, everybody knows it. They did a test that I think was 64% of the women know who Ronda Rousey is in America. So that is a lot of pressure on a person. She can go to a store, people recognize her. She can pump gas. If she gets out of the car, people will stop their cars for autographs or pictures. I mean, that's a lot of pressure that you take with you the whole time. So once she starts a little bit, being not as friendly to people, it's 100% understandable. Because if you get that everywhere you go, I mean, I'm telling you the truth. People are so relentless, fans sometimes, and what she has, I only have it at fight events, but I don't have it regular on the street. She has that everywhere. But if you, for instance, in a restaurant close to a place where a fight is, and I'm eating there with my family, fans will come in while you're eating and asking for autographs and pictures. While you're eating, while you're just starting your food. Now, I don't like to shake hands. I'm the guy who goes to the restroom, washes his hands, and then I start eating. So then I start bumping fists if that happens. Some people already get aggravated by that. Oh, why doesn't he give me a hand? And I explained to them, I said, guys, I just washed my hands. I mean, dinner, I already don't want to do it, but let's get it over with. The problem is once you do that, and other people from the outside see that you're doing it, they come in, so then it's that snowball effect. And that gets really aggravating to me. Then I go like, wow, I would never do that to a person. I can understand the fans. Don't get me wrong. I understand. They see somebody and they ask. They don't think. They just they love me. The people who do that. So it's very understandable. But if you have that everywhere you go, oh man, yeah, you become closed down. You can sometimes be harsh to somebody because it becomes annoying at a certain point.
Oh man, we can only imagine what you go through, and then of course what Ronda Rousey goes through as well. The other way of looking at it, obviously, is Ronda's loss is arguably Conor McGregor's gain. I mean, the UFC may have lost their second biggest star potentially with Ronda, at least for a little while, and now will probably need Conor McGregor even more if they want to replicate the success and the pay-per-view buys of 2016. Are you expecting sort of more crazy shenanigans and public negotiations in 2017 as Conor McGregor tries to get what he deserves from the UFC?
Yeah, for sure. McGregor's doing a great job right now. I mean, he's doing everything for the fighters. The fighters can be angry at him, but man, he's doing a lot for them. He's the guy who put it even more on the map. More people are watching. I mean, he makes the other fighters famous as well because just of the way he is in public. He's doing a phenomenal job. Yeah, and of course he's going to keep going with the negotiations. What for Lorenzo Fertitta said, he says he's going to be the first guy who's going to make $100 million. I truly believe it. The guy is just very smart. So yeah, he will be there. And I have a feeling that we do. And I know people are going to go like, oh, you're crazy. But I think Brock Lesnar will be back as well. I truly believe that.
That's fascinating. What makes you think that, Bas? Because I mean, a lot of people thought that he was done with fighting after what happened with the Mark Hunt and the testing. What makes you believe that he'll be back? Is it due to the fact that the UFC is desperate for stars right now?
Yeah, exactly what you just said. If Rousey decides to hang it up, they got only Conor McGregor. Now, Conor's not going to fight for a very long time anymore. I think this guy needs to be in movies also. I think he probably will be a really good actor as well. So I think probably he's going to take that route. I don't know. He's got a very competitive spirit in him. So hopefully we see him fight a few more years. But what if not? What if he gets injured? Boom. I mean, there's nothing compared to it. I mean, you look at John Jones, who's a phenomenal athlete, who's right away also still have to wait till he can come back. But he draws good pay-per-view numbers, but not what McGregor and Rousey are doing. And they need another person. The only other person that is there is Brock Lesnar. And that's why I'm thinking that they will go after him.
And he can fight as early as July, and I can absolutely see that happening. I'm just wondering, where do you sort of stand on that situation? Because you got this crazy short suspension. You got Paul Machida doing like a year and a half for taking something that doesn't really do anything, and then you got Brock Lesnar testing positive for clomiphene, which is a much more sort of serious PED. Where do you stand on him coming back?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. It's you know my stance on the whole PED thing. It's not necessary. It really is not. I got into MMA at 28, which is late, and I never needed it. So why would they need it? Nobody needs it. And then once your body can't do it anymore, it's time for you to quit. It's time to do something else. So I'm not a big fan of it. I understand that they need him. Yeah, I mean they need some crazy attractions now, because otherwise the $4.2 billion it was a very large payday. But they bought that when McGregor and Rousey were there, and now there's a chance that is going to be over, at least for Rousey and McGregor in a bit. So yeah, the next biggest draw that was Brock Lesnar. So I have the feeling he will come back, but he's going to be tested up to the gills, I guess. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think USADA should really visit them every week. That's what I think they should do.
One more question, and we'll let you go, Bas. And we really appreciate the time. I mean, a local native to New Zealand and Australia, Mark Hunt, has sort of been battling the UFC for quite some time, and just sort of in a recent interview had to accept the fact that things weren't really going to go his way and accept a fight with Alistair Overeem. A lot of people are saying, Overeem has had his history with coming back not exactly clean on certain tests. What do you think about the situation that Mark Hunt has found himself in, where a lot of the fighters that he's faced in the UFC and in his career have ended up failing drug tests?
I really feel for the guy, man. He's such a good dude, in and out the cage, always in the ring when he was competing in Thai boxing. Nicest guy you ever meet. I think he's right, that he said he wants to suit him. I would say I would go to a fighter before, and any fighter for him. It's not like I'm challenging Overeem out because he's been fighting clean for a long time now. So that's okay. But I would say I make a contract. Make a contract that goes over that contract that says, okay, it's good, I'll fight you. If you test positive, I want half your purse. And you have to sign that. And hopefully the opponent signs it. And if they don't sign it, well, that's already a bad sign, right, so to say. But something like that, I would see if that's even possible. I don't know if that is possible, but something to that effect, I would at least try.
Bas, we've got to let you go. Obviously, you're a busy man. Before we do, I just got to ask you, obviously, you've got your podcast written with Ronaldo. You've had some amazing guests recently like Daniel Bryan and Bill Goldberg, and you've always got MMA fighters and actors on. Give the fans a preview. What can fans expect in the coming weeks?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, tomorrow's today, Tuesday. Yeah, tomorrow we're going to do the Joe Rogan podcast, Mauro and I. We're going to jump on the show, so that will be fun. We're going to talk about some old crazy Pride stories we had, and then this week it's going to be the Rutten and Ranallo show. It's now split up, right? You have Rutten and Ranallo, you have the Combat Sports Carousel. So the Combat Sports Carousel is all fighting and entertainment, sports entertainment, like WWE. But it's all about fighting. And then on Fridays that's on Mondays. We release that on Mondays, and on Fridays we release a podcast, and that's all. We talk about things that happen in the world. And if we find an interesting guest, that guest will be on. This week we won't have a guest because we have a lot to talk about with the new year. Not about fighting, because again we just did that. We released that yesterday in the Combat Sports Carousel. But now this is for Meryl Streep. That story.
Yeah.
Things like that. We will start talking about it about tomorrow. It's the podcast of positivity, as we call it. There's no negative stuff that we cover. Yeah, of course, when somebody passes away, but it's more of a tribute. We give a tribute to that person. But for the rest, we like to keep it light because there's not craziness in the world. Make it a fun podcast that when people listen, that they actually have a good feeling when they stop listening. Not like when you watch the movie Seven. You remember the movie Seven?
What's in the box? What's in the box?
Oh, man. We all wanted to go out after that movie. Nobody wanted to go out anymore. We were so depressed. It was the craziest thing. So make people happy. Have them enjoy life, and we have fun doing that. And if they have fun listening, man, that's our goal. Our goal has been reached.
What a good way to sum it up. I mean, a positive time. If you guys want to have a good time, entertainment, laughter, just covering a whole range of subjects, make sure to check out the show and make sure to check out Bas on Kevin Can Wait on CBS. That airs on the 16th of January at 8 p.m. Also, make sure to check out the O2 Trainer. It's a device that Bas actually invented, and we've spoken about many times of the show. It can help you improve your lung function. You can use it to get into summer shape here in Australia. Everybody make sure to check it out. You can go to o2trainer.com for more information. And, of course, Bas's podcast can be found on Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, SoundCloud. And make sure to follow him on Twitter at Bas Rutten MMA. That's Rutten and Ronaldo. Like Bas said, a lot of fun. Make sure to check it out. Bas, thanks again, and thank you for taking the time for chatting to us. We know we went a little bit over, but, I mean, how could we not? You're such a fun guy to have on the program. And as Casper said, one of our favorite guests to have on.
Yeah, I want to have the same thing, guys. I always have a blast with you guys, so no problem whatsoever. Thank you for having me.
Hey, guys, this is Brian Stan. You're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, a close friend of the show. Our next guest is known for his amazing work with Fox Sports and covering the crazy world of MMA. And when he's not talking about the sport, you can find him taking care of business on Nerdcore Movement, breaking down all the intricacies of the pop culture world. And God, Damon, I mean, you must be talking about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of cool things happening in the pop culture world. We have to welcome you officially to our first program of 2017. Damon Martin, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I have to quickly ask you, how was last year's Festivus? And how did the airing of the grievances and the feats of strength work out with you and your wonderful family?
It was pretty amazing. You know, we busted out the pole from the crawl space, and we had a good time. We had a good time with the airing of grievances. I did win the feats of strength. I was proud of myself for that. So it was a good time.
Well, maybe Grandma can get stronger for next year, and then she can really have a go at you with it. But there's a lot to talk about, and this is the first show back, so we excuse everybody for going back a little bit of time. But because we were on break, there's a few things to discuss from UFC 207, and none bigger than Ronda Rousey's loss to Amanda Nunes. It was a quick and brutal fight for Ronda Rousey, where she looked stunned from early on. Damon, what did you think about the way the fight went, and did you expect it to quite go like this?
Sitting cage side for that one, it was one of those kind of stunning. It was kind of like sitting cage side for Conor and Jose Aldo. It was over so quick. You're just you don't even really have a chance to react before it's already over. And I admit, and I'm not bragging by any stretch of the imagination, I picked Amanda Nunes to win by first round TKO, but at the time I actually was pretty much flipping a coin. I said either Amanda is going to win by TKO in the first round or Ronda is going to win by armbar in the first round. That's pretty much how I thought it would go. I didn't figure this was going to be a 5-round war. So I'm not surprised necessarily that Amanda won, but at the same time, it was just such a lopsided fight, and it ended so quickly. But it wasn't even like Conor and Aldo where it was one punch and you're like, wow, like that kind of thing. Like she went after Ronda and just kept punching her, and Ronda had literally no defense. So it was shocking in that manner that Ronda offered up literally no defense whatsoever other than, basically trying to run away from getting punched.
I'm with you as well, Damon. I think in the lead up, because we didn't really have anything on Ronda, she didn't do any media. We couldn't watch her at open workouts. We really didn't have anything to gauge. It was like, well, coming off a brutal knockout and going up against an aggressive striker, someone who comes out really hard in the first round against Amanda Nunes, you can really see this fight, Ronda getting TKO. But you think, well, she did have so much success in the division. What if she's got some secret master plan? Maybe she will submit her. I mean, Amanda Nunes, she has been beaten in the past, but then when it actually happened, it was like, yeah, wasn't really all that surprising. And like you, and like pretty much everybody else, was watching that fight thinking, wow, she just looked like very much the same Ronda Rousey that came out against Holly Holm, but almost a subpar version. It's just like she just seemed very unprepared for that fight. And I think really the first punch that landed, Ronda Rousey was essentially transported back to 2015 in November to that Holly Holm fight, and she sort of fell apart at the seams. I think, when you're coming back and you've got that cage rust, you really need a couple of things to go right for you early on to get comfortable. I think the octagon for her, it was like a foreign ground for her. Since coming back, she needed to sort of build her confidence, and Amanda just never gave her that opportunity to build confidence, never gave her the opportunity to land anything, and then it just basically crumbled for her. But I will say, respect to Ronda, because even though she didn't have a great performance, she didn't look good, she never quit at any point. She kept coming forward, and she was just beaten by a fighter that was much superior and much better prepared.
Yeah, and guys, I think I was just guilty of really underestimating Amanda Nunes. Now, I thought this fight was either going to quickly finish with Ronda Rousey submitting her or Nunes, doing what she did to Ronda, but I thought it would happen a little bit later, maybe in the second round, maybe in the third round, and I was just really, really impressed by Amanda. And the year that she's had, UFC 200 and UFC 207, headlining those cards, that's pretty huge. I don't think any of us would have expected her to be headlining those cards and, being in that position. But it's one of those situations where I kind of wish Ronda didn't get stunned from the get-go, because I really wanted to see what she was working on. And I really felt like you said, Casper, when she got hit with those punches at the start, or that punch at the start, she got either transported back to Melbourne against Holly Holm, or she was just too stunned and she just went into recovery, trying to figure out how to survive mode. And I never got a chance to really see what she was really working on. Head movement, a lot of people are yelling about head movement, but when you get stunned in the ring, it's not easy to really do that, and you go back to sort of what you're used to, which in Ronda Rousey's case was just sort of standing there and not doing too well in the striking division. But, she did try to clinch her a couple of times and stuff like that. It wasn't a great attempt, but she was trying to do it. Damon, there's a lot of criticism. People are talking about that Ronda Rousey is done and that the game has passed her by. What's your response to all these critics out there?
Well, I think it's kind of a two-part response. One, when you say the division is caught up to her, I don't think that's wrong in the sense of the division figured out how to beat Ronda when she doesn't get you to the ground. Holly Holm kind of gave that blueprint of not coming out there and just charging into Ronda so she can take you to the ground or just basically overwhelm you with her strength. And so that part I would agree with, but to sit here and say that Ronda is washed up and Ronda is done, I think is crazy. She's such a high-level athlete. I think when you say that, when you say things like she's washed up and she's done, to me it's an insult to the fighter she just beat. She beat Miesha Tate twice. She beat Kat Zingano. She beat Betch Kohea. She beat a lot of people, and to just kind of discount all those wins and say now she's done, I think that's a little bit of a discredit to the record she put together. Does she need to make some drastic changes? Absolutely. She needs to get away from Edmond Tarverdyan. So she needs to change her number and not give it to Edmond is what she needs to do. She needs to move out of her house and just pretend like she's just cutting him off, because listen. And listen, here's the thing. Edmond doesn't deserve all the blame. At the end of the day, Ronda is the one going in there and fighting. You can prepare someone all you want. You get the best coaches in the world. It doesn't mean, I remember talking to Greg Jackson and Mike Winklejohn about this, and Leonard Garcia for that matter, when Leonard Garcia used to go out there and he would have these tremendous training camps, and then as soon as he stepped into the octagon, he would just kind of forget everything and go out there and just throw down, literally just start punching and going crazy. And everyone, all three of them would tell me on a regular basis, none of them had discussed planning to do that when they stepped into the fight. But that was just Leonard's way of fighting. So you can't put all the blame on Edmond. Because, again, it's still Ronda in the fight. But what did he do to get her ready? Did she do anything to improve? I had heard stories that she didn't spar at all during training camp, and that I had heard a rumor. And again, this is just a rumor. I don't want to sit here and perpetuate a lie if it didn't happen. But the rumor I heard during fight week is that she had gotten into a sparring match with a training partner, and she got kicked in the head, not like a knockout kick, but just got tagged pretty good in a training session, and literally stopped the training session and kind of walked away. Because she got hit and she got hurt, and you wonder, and again, when you see her take that first jab from Amanda Nunes and immediately her reaction changed, her entire demeanor changed after that first jab landed, you just wonder, can she take a punch anymore? So all these different things happen to where you just wonder where her head's at, and will she ever be able to recover? And I don't know the answer to that. The one thing I can say is if she does come back, and I honestly believe there's too much money on the table for her not to come back, but she's got to get away from Edmond. She's got to get to a real trainer who's going to find out what she's made of, because she's never going to find that out under him.
She needs to buy a fake mustache and move to a different country. I'm with you, Damon. I mean, people are saying that she's exposed and the puzzle's been solved and that she's, one-dimensional. But like you mentioned, despite all those things, she still managed to beat half the division. People say that she has no head movement, no footwork, predictable clinch setups. Well, if those are her flaws now, then they've always been there, and yet she's still made it so far. I mean, imagine if she cleaned those things up and learned new skills. I think she lost because she failed to improve when others did. In the time that she was away, everybody was working hard and hustling and improving. If she fixes the holes in her game, she finds new ways to implement her already strong skill set, if she dedicates herself to striking defense, if she incorporates, wrestling or at least wrestling setups to implement her judo and ground game, I think she can definitely be dominant once again. I think the notion of her being, washed up or that she can't compete anymore, I don't think that's correct. Whether those things actually happen is another story. And remember, Amanda and Holly, they were nightmare matchups for her, especially in the order that things played out. I mean, getting brutally knocked out and then coming back to face the hardest, potentially the hardest hitter in the division, that's pretty rough. I think, losing to Amanda Nunes doesn't mean that you're washed up. I think Valentina, that's another nightmare matchup for her at the moment, but there are still other fighters that Ronda Rousey compete in the division, fighters that don't hit as hard, fighters that may not, manage distance as well, and may find themselves caught in the clinch again and eventually on the ground where Ronda, I think, can still definitely dominate. I think to your point about, moving camps, and I guess this is something we're going to get into in a second, I think the other than improving her technical skills, her boxing, her wrestling, her mental game needs a bit of a reboot. We've seen the nervous yelling of Edmond Tarverdyan during her fights, during Travis Brown's fights. I think what she needs is someone who's going to bring a bit of zen to the situation, someone who can really sort of calm her down, relax her, someone like a Greg Jackson, a Coach Winklejohn, or a Faraz Sahabi, or even the calm, cool, soothing voice of a Matt Brown. These guys are almost like mental freaks. They know the game so well. They've all had the experience in all sorts of different facets, and I think they can really get into Ronda's head and sort of change her way of thinking. We had Bas Rutten before saying that she needs to stop being so angry, stop being so tense. People have said that in her camps and in Glendale Fight Club, there's so much emotion, there's so much rage and things like that. I think these are guys who can bring a little bit more, logic and structure to the whole situation. I don't think moving into state or relocating to say like an Albuquerque or Montreal will be an issue for her if she's committed. She seems like the kind of person who's, driven and obsessed enough to dedicate herself entirely in such a way if that's what she wants to do.
And guys, it's interesting because, I was very critical of Edmond after the UFC in Melbourne. Obviously, the advice he gave her wasn't great. I wasn't a very big fan of Edmond with what happened between him and Fabricio Verdum after that Travis Brown fight. I thought, his conduct was unprofessional. And as a coach, it's not your... it's not, you can't go around challenging guys to a fight in the middle of the octagon or yelling things at him. I just feel like it's disrespectful. But I have to say, a lot of people talk about the fact that Edmond, didn't teach her how to move any head movement, a lot of, basic boxing skills, and talk about the fact that she'd do so much better with a different camp. I went through a book, I read about it, and it really seems like in her whole career, when it came to judo especially, and when she trained with her mom and everybody else, that was the approach that she had. She had to be angry to do well. And when she wasn't angry and when she was more relaxed and, more calm and more jokey, she didn't do very well. And she had to go in there hating her opponent. And she had to go in there being overly dramatic. And she had to be super serious in her training for her to compete well. So to me, even though I think her going to another training camp would be good and I do think there are some serious flaws in the wrestling department I really think she should capitalize on. At the same time, if she does go to a more calmer camp, I'm curious to see if she would actually do well, because mentally, maybe she performs better when she has a guy like Edmond yelling in her corner and yelling out these things, and maybe she has to go crazy in training and be super serious and be overly dramatic to really bring something out in herself. But in this fight, I feel like Edmond has sort of gotten too much criticism because we didn't really get a chance to see what they were working on, and the fight was so short. I sort of want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I believe he would have worked with the head movement. That's just basic stuff that you do in fitness kickboxing, and this guy has worked with professional boxers for a lot of his career. But I just think the game plan maybe wasn't there. And in that regard, that I am critical of him, although we didn't really get a chance to see it because she looked like she was stunned early. But Damon, my question to you is, where would you like to see him go? Because, My question with Jackson Winklejohn is, you got Holly Holm there, and a big fight between Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm is always on the horizon. I mean, Alistair Overeem went over there with Andrei Arlovski training there, but I just don't feel like, the possibility of them having that rivalry was just as huge and as much money was put into a potential fight between them two. Do you think Jackson Winklejohn would even entertain the fact of having Ronda Rousey train there, especially with the huge relationship that Coach Wink has with Holly Holm, and he's had it from the very beginning? Do you think they'd even be comfortable accepting her into the gym?
Yeah, I don't think that would work. The Holly Holm factor would be too much. I mean, that would, you're asking, and Holly Holm has been a part of Jackson Winklejohn for years. I mean, many, many years. And I think that would be uncomfortable to ask Holly to welcome Ronda into her camp, considering that there is still a great chance they can fight again in the future if Ronda comes back, depending on how Holly does in her upcoming fight with Jermaine Durandamy. So, I mean, listen, you can't do that to Holly. I think that's disrespectful to even ask that. And I think you're asking for trouble. Even as big of a star as Ronda is, you're just asking for trouble. That's going to turn into a, Rashad Evans, John Jones situation. Don't play that game. I think, Holly has seniority there, and I don't think they would do that to her anyways. Where I think Ronda would be best served, and there's a lot of great camps out there, and again, it depends on where you're looking at. I mean, there's some camps are going to be shut off to her. I don't think she's ever going to be able to train at American Top Team because that's Amanda Nunes' camp. As I said, I don't think it's fair to Holly Holm to even ask her to train with Ronda Rousey at Jackson's. So the camp I'd really like to see her go to, because I think she'd get the best of both worlds, meaning the best coaches, but also the best kind of peer-to-peer advice, would be going somewhere like American Kickboxing Academy. I think there she gets a great wrestling, mentorship from a guy like Daniel Cormier, who is a phenomenal wrestling coach. But she also gets the mentorship of other fighters like Luke Rockhold, coming back from a knockout. Daniel Cormier coming back from a tough loss before in his career. You get a lot of veteran leadership in a camp like that. Cain Velasquez and also Javier Mendez, tremendous boxing coach, tremendous coaches all the way around. And I think that is what she needs. She needs not only great coaches, but she needs great mentors in terms of other peers in her profession. And I think, knowing Daniel Cormier as well as I do, that guy is a phenomenal coach and almost like a life coach. Like, he's got a real sense of the sport and how to overcome loss. I mean, that guy has faced more adversity than almost anybody in this sport. When you look at his wrestling career, his personal life, and then, in his UFC career. And then a guy like Luke Rockhold, who has been around and a very smart person. Javier Mendez is a tremendous coach. And then you got guys like Josh Thompson, true veteran of the sport, working out there. Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, think about learning wrestling from Khabib Nurmagomedov and Daniel Cormier. Could you ask for anybody better to get her wrestling on point, to get her back in the place where she needs to be with her judo and with her takedowns? And the other benefit is it's in San Jose. It's an hour flight for her from LA to go up there. It's not asking her to relocate her life to a new state because I think another coach that I really thought would be beneficial to her would be a guy like Mark Henry, a team like, out there with Ricardo Almeida, Frankie Edgar, Marlon Moraes, all those folks, Edson Barbosa. I mean, that would be a phenomenal team. But at that point, I think you're asking Ronda to literally relocate her entire life from LA all the way to New York and New Jersey. And I think that may be a bit much for her. But I think San Jose would be a great transition, and I think American Kickboxing Academy would give her everything she needs, including the hard sparring. And I know AKA takes a lot of criticism for the hard sparring because they deal with so many injuries, but for a person like Ronda, who is, I think right now, just a little bit afraid to take a punch, I think that's what she needs. She needs that hard sparring. She needs to get herself past that mental block of what it's like to take a punch, and I think she would get that there. And last but not least, I will say, they don't really have a lot of women that train at AKA. I know Betch Correia worked briefly out of there for one of her fights. I don't think she even worked out of there for her last fight, if I'm not mistaken anyways. So there's no conflict there. There's no other people in her division that are mainstays of that gym that are going to interfere with her going there.
Damn, man, you blew me out of the water. I don't quite have as many as Damon, and that was actually really great. You made a lot of valid points. I hope that Ronda or someone near her is listening because I think you basically sold her and everyone on it. I was going to say TriStar potentially. Now, I don't know how Ronda feels about Canada, but I think a lot of her issues, like I mentioned before, other than the technical, are mental at this point. And I think one of the best minds in the sport is Faraz Sahabi. Not any disrespect to any other coaches, but he's so good as far as the mental game. And, he's spoken at length about what he would do as far as, fixing Ronda Rousey's habits and really sort of train her mind in the right way. Also, we spoke about, the contrast of Edmond and sort of his nervous yelling and shouting and just the emotional style that he has. And I think Faraz Sahabi is really the perfect contrast. The other thing that I was going to say is potentially trained with Dwayne Ludwig. I mean, he's a guy who, in on himself, is quite eccentric, and he's got a very sort of energetic, intense style, and that might be something that might resonate with Ronda. Obviously, we've seen what he did with a lot of the Team Alpha Male guys, whether you're talking TJ Dillashaw or any of the other guys, but, Chad Mendes, you've got Joseph Benavidez. A lot of guys really like what he does. A lot of guys really like, what he trains, and obviously the footwork and the technical striking is something that he could offer her. I guess the wrestling wouldn't be quite as much, but people have been talking about Team Alpha Male. That's another possibility. I mean, that's a super camp. You've got a lot of really good fighters there, and wrestling and striking, I mean, you've got a great team there as well. I don't know how Ronda feels about Denver, but I feel like, staying around, I think it's Angels camp Sacramento, where Team Alpha Male is. I think that might be a much easier transition. But I will say, while we're talking about all these great theories, I don't see her moving camps. I think that, she is the way she fights. She goes forward, she doesn't look back, she does things her way, stubborn, unapologetic. These are all traits of Ronda Rousey. You look at some of the things that she's trademarked, like do nothing bitches and fuck them all. That's basically... she's basically isolating herself and saying it's me against the world. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to do it my way. She specifically turned her back to the media, and the haters and the critics who scrutinized her. She wanted to come back and prove everybody wrong on her own terms. And I think moving camps would be like admitting to all those people that they were essentially right all along. I think that the reason also why she's avoided answering these questions about her coach and training methods is because she's not necessarily ready to question those things herself. And I think from what everybody close to Ronda has said, there's a very strong psychological relationship between Ronda and Edmond. She's known him for a very long time. For whatever reason, she's drawn to him, and she's extremely loyal. And this may end up costing her. It's usually a good trait in people, but it may be to her detriment. I think that convincing her that he's a detriment to her career would be like trying to convince somebody that their religion is the wrong one. I think it's part of their ways, and it's very hard for them to make such a drastic change after doing something for so long. I think the same is with Ronda Rousey.
And it's also a tough situation because I don't think Edmond is the type of guy that would really see her going to another camp without getting upset, and everybody's talking about her leaving. So that, I think the fact that the public's talking about it makes it even more difficult for her because, I mean, Edmond's hearing all this stuff all the time, and then if she goes, hey, I'm leaving as well, that puts a lot of pressure on you. It's like when...
I mean, it'd be embarrassing for him, right? If she loses, then essentially everything that everybody's been saying about Edmond kind of looks like, well, he was right along. And they're friends. They're more than friends. They're two very close people who have grown up. And I mean, essentially, I think Ronda would feel guilty about doing that to Edmond.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know what's going on in his personal life, but we've seen some of the issues with the bankruptcy and the gym not doing well and all that other stuff. Who knows? Maybe she is the last thing that he's got that's keeping everything going. But, I mean, you guys took all the good gyms. Absolutely agree with both of you guys. AK would be amazing. TriStar would be great. The only other thing I would say is if I was Ronda Rousey's camp, and maybe this is something that Edmond wouldn't really mind as much, I would go over to Thailand with the pals. I would go spend some time over there and just really find the enjoyment and the art in striking. I know that her and Edmond do primarily a lot of boxing. But going over to Thailand, just spending some time in one of the camps there and just living there and training and finding out really the history behind it and why it's so special to them. Because over there, it's like a religion and they take it very seriously. She may find some pleasure and understanding in the striking. And over there, I mean, some of the stuff that they teach is very, very interesting. I know Faraz Sahabi brings in a lot of guys from Thailand to train over there in TriStar. So I think that could be a lot of fun. And that's a bit of a big trip as well. So, I mean, I don't know, Damon. I don't know if she'll be interested in it, but if she is, I mean, that could be really good. Just quickly, before we wrap this thing up on Ronda and move on to one more thing from UFC 207, I just want to quickly get from both of you, you starting first, Damon, what do you think about the legacy? If she returns, can she sort of restore it to the way it was, and where is it right now for you, having covered, most of her fights in the UFC?
I don't know. I mean, can her legacy ever recover? That's a big if, because she would have to go back and win the title, in my opinion, to really reclaim that legacy, because that's what she was known as. She was known as a champion, and I have a hard time believing that she would ever regain that status again without winning back the belt. And that's a tough thing, especially with Amanda Nunes as champion. But it's possible. I mean, listen, Amanda Nunes has been beaten, and we don't know what's going to happen. We got this fight coming up with Valentina Shevchenko and Julianna Pena. The winner of that could very easily fight Amanda. And Valentina gave, Amanda Nunes everything she could handle over 3 rounds when they fought. And she just beat Holly Holm, and that may be a really bad matchup for Ronda. But who knows? I mean, you can't just discount and say she couldn't win. Same thing. I think Julianna Pena would actually be a better stylistic matchup for Ronda, because Juliana's a wrestler, and if you take Ronda down, you're playing right into her world. So to say she couldn't do it is crazy. But I think she needs to win the title back to really regain her legacy. But I think to just get people back on her side, to get people to kind of stand up for her again and kind of cheer Ronda Rousey, she needs to come back and at least have one more fight. Because I think right now, after that fight, everyone has lost their mind saying she's overrated. She was never as good as we thought she was. And I think those are all ridiculous statements. But I think Ronda, to just kind of prove everybody wrong, she needs to get back on the horse and fight at least one more fight. And I think she will. The fact that she hasn't retired yet makes me believe that she is going to fight again, except this time she's got to do it differently. She's got to get a new coach. She's got to face the media. She's got to answer those tough questions and be willing to face the brunt of that attack to really kind of own up to it. And if she does all those things, and if she comes out and let's say she fights Julianna Pena, or let's say she fights Holly Holm, just maybe both of them are coming off a loss or whatever the case may be, and she gets a win and says, you know what, that's enough for me. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could get back out there and win one more, then that's fine. Maybe her legacy doesn't go down as one of the greatest of all time. Maybe she doesn't go down as the greatest women's mixed martial artist of all time, but she can reclaim her status in the public eye as a person you can look up to, a person that you can be proud of, and a person that kind of stood up to adversity and came back and faced it all.
Yeah, I think that those goals that she set for herself early on, as far as retiring undefeated, and she wanted to retire as the greatest mixed martial artist of all time, that's obviously super, super unlikely to ever happen at this point. And I also think that's a crazy amount of pressure to really put on yourself. And that may be another reason, another thing that sort of led to her downfall, just the immense pressure and sort of goals that she set for herself. But I tell you what, MMA is such a sort of what have you done for me lately kind of sport, and the way people remember things. I actually don't think, I understand why people are questioning her character and, whether she really had it and things like that. But I actually think Ronda Rousey's legacy, it's so much bigger than just her last 2 fights. I think, or even a lot of her fights in general. I think it's important to remember that she's the reason why women are currently in the UFC and, women's MMA where it is today. Even if she never comes back, she's done more than enough for the sport and given to more than most fighters will ever give in their entire careers. And that's not a slight against other fighters. It's just that you could be a much better fighter and train harder and have a longer career and come back from your losses and be better Ronda Rousey in every way. You can have the heart of the warrior, etc. But what she did was she brought a new demographic of fans into the sport, one that had never previously existed. She also took the sport to new heights and transcended barriers that had never been transcended. She's also got a lifetime of athletic competition behind her. So she certainly sacrificed her body more than enough. I think most athletes, they work their whole lives just to make it into the Olympics. She did it multiple times, and then she went over and conquered another sport. So there's something to be said about, I think, fighters who continuously sacrifice their bodies beyond what is smart to feed the spirit of the warrior. Guys like Nogueira, guys like Chris Lieben, Vanderlei Silva. But I think it takes a lot more discipline to sort of stop chasing the dragon and that often elusive one last win in favor of a much more delayed gratification, which is, physically healthier life over, the coming decades, and really looking to sort of your future. I think it's a lot easier to sort of chase the crowd and that, train for a fight for 6 months or however many months just so you can feel that glory one more time. But I think the fact that she did lose, I think it kind of halts her other possibilities and other careers, things like Hollywood. Her whole persona, the reason why she was in movies was because she was a famous person who was known for kicking ass. When she was in Expendables, she basically played herself. When she was in Fast and Furious, she played herself. Roadhouse, when she was in Entourage, these were all caricatures of herself, someone who kicked ass, and everybody believed it. It wasn't because she was a great actress. And I think now that aura is broken, I don't know how keen Hollywood is going to be to cast her. I don't know how keen the WWE are going to be to have her. So I actually think even though she lost, kind of raises the possibility of her sticking around and coming back. I hope she does, but if she doesn't, I think that she's definitely done enough for the sport, and I think she should be remembered rather positively for what she's done.
Yeah, well put, Cass. I mean, I'll say it quickly because you covered a lot of stuff I was going to say. I think to casual fans, her legacy's been destroyed. People that don't really care about the sport and just tune in occasionally. I think to more hardcore fans and to media, I think to a lot of us will always remember her legacy and everything that she's done, like Casper mentioned. But, I mean, I think she really could have eased the blow, the public perception, and sort of improved her legacy a little bit if she did do a little bit more media. And also after the fight, if she did that post-fight press conference, if she did the interview in the middle of the octagon, gave Amanda some credibility and stuff like that. Because I think a part of the legacy is obviously the fact that she lost a couple of times, but also I think for a lot of people, just, I don't know, they're not just big on Ronda Rousey as a person. A lot of negativity going around about the way she acts and the way she treats her opponents and stuff like that. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Nobody loves a comeback story more than the world of fighting. So if she does come back and win again, I mean, she can turn everything around. I mean, look at Anderson Silva at UFC 200 when he took that fight with Daniel Cormier last second. Now everybody loves him. Now, let's quickly talk about the final thing from UFC 207. Damon, Mike Golberg had his last show at UFC 207, and people were surprised. His son brought it up on Twitter that he didn't really get like a proper farewell. He didn't get a farewell package. He didn't get really a mention, a montage, anything. The show just ended. It was his final show, and it was goodbye to Mike Goldberg, who's been around with the UFC for, a super long time, been a part of so many great moments. How does that sit with you?
It was disappointing. I mean, listen, I don't ever root for anyone to lose their job, but when I heard that Mike Goldberg was being replaced, I wasn't necessarily shocked. I don't think it's the wrong thing for the UFC to look for a different direction. I mean, listen, there are some great commentators out there, and Mike Goldberg absolutely earned his place in the history of the sport by calling some of the biggest fights ever. But I'm not opposed to a change. You know what I mean? Like I said, I never root for someone to lose their job by any stretch of the imagination, and Mike Goldberg has always been a super nice guy and a very well-spoken guy, and obviously an advocate for the UFC and for mixed martial arts. So whether he deserved to be replaced or not is really not the argument. The fact is that he put in 19 years of service to the UFC, and Mike is a professional. Listen, the way it's, and we don't know the true story. We don't know the whole story. Dana didn't want to comment on it when I asked him the question in the scrum. He basically said if Mike Goldberg wants to address it, he can. So we don't know. We don't know, was he fired? Did he decide to leave? I mean, it certainly looks like the UFC decided to go in a different direction, and he was kind of let go. Maybe that was how it all worked out. And I don't know, maybe they're worried he would like flip out or something if they gave him that open mic, but obviously they trusted him enough to put him on the broadcast, and he did a fine enough job. So I think you owe it to him to give him that send-off, to say thank you for 19 years worth of service. You've been a credit to the industry, and you've been a big part of the UFC, and send him off that way, but they didn't do that. So I thought he deserved better. Mike had been there for a long time, but I also thought, and I know Joe Silva, didn't want any send-off, but I thought even if he didn't want it, the UFC should have done a send-off to Joe Silva as well. That was his last show at UFC 207, and there was not a mention of that. Now, I understand Joe has said, I didn't want that. I don't want that at all. I just wanted to kind of, go off and do my thing. But I think even against his wishes, I think they should have had said something or done something for Joe and for Mike Goldberg on that show, and they didn't.
I feel like Joe was like that chick in Seinfeld where Jerry offers her the pie and then she just shakes her head for some reason. Joe was like, no, I don't want the send-off. And Dana's like, it'll be a good send-off. It's a delicious send-off. And he's like, no, I don't want it. But no, seriously, I think unlike Joe and a lot of the other people that have recently been getting laid off by the UFC, Mike Goldberg, he wasn't a behind-the-scenes name. He was a very direct part of the feel of the UFC product. He was literally the first and the last thing you would hear during pay-per-view broadcasts. While Joe brings a ton of insight, Mike was the guy that steered the ship and navigated the broadcast. He was, like you mentioned, Damon, he was the voice of the UFC for, 19, 20 years. His voice is ingrained in almost all the biggest and most iconic moments the UFC has ever had over the last, 20 or so years. Chuck Liddell, BJ Penn, GSP Anderson Silva, John Jones, Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor. Throughout their biggest wins and losses, the most shocking finishes and upsets in the UFC, you heard Mike Golberg yelling excitedly, almost as a soundtrack to those moments. You hear a commercial, a promo on the TV for an upcoming pay-per-view, it's the UFC. Not only because of Joe Rogan, but obviously because of Mike Goldberg's voice. I mean, he definitely had his shortcomings, and the UFC have every right to replace him if that's what they wanted. Like you mentioned, Damon, I'm not saying they had to keep him, but I think it's only fair to give him a nice send-off and publicly acknowledge his body of work. A nice promo package couldn't hurt, or at the very least, a mention during the broadcast. And I think, I don't know Mike personally, but I get the feeling, unlike Joe, he's a guy who would have appreciated something like that. He would have liked it. So I'm personally going to miss his enthusiastic voice navigating UFC pay-per-views, and my hat's off to him for doing a job that is much, much harder than it seems.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you guys, and Damon, I agree with you. I mean, I have no problem with them getting rid of Mike. I understand the direction that they're going in, but I mean, a guy that, like you mentioned, guys, has spent that much time in the UFC and has been a classy guy all the way through it, not jumping on interviews, talking shit about the company, being a company guy, and really handling this departure in the classiest ways possible. Putting out a statement on his social media, not going on any programs, even though we'd love to have him on the show to find out what happened. Not talking any shit, not saying, and he could have gone on a show, he could have gone on the MMA area and said, hey, I put 19 years into this, and they possibly just said, that's it, Mike, you're done, and air his frustrations. And he never did that. He's a super classy guy, and even if they did go up to him and fire him, and even if he did behind the scenes possibly say, like, fuck you, I did all this stuff, and they had an argument, I still feel like the way that he's acted, the job that he's done, the work that he's put into the company, and I mean, we're all professionals here. When you get let go, you get let go. It's not personal. But I believe that when a guy puts in that much work to a company and does that much, and like you mentioned, Casper, he's an on-air personality. No matter what's going on backstage between him and Dana White and him and the UFC, he handled it like a champ. He's a classy guy. You give him that send-off, not because maybe your relationship with him is in tatters. Who knows what's going on but behind the scenes. But you do it for the fans who had a connection with him over all those years. And a lot of them, I mean, we knew this was his final broadcast, right? But a lot of those fans were casual fans. A lot of those fans were fans that maybe heard him once every couple of times a year over the last, 10, 19 years. They didn't know it was his final show. They may not realize it. And to me, even though Mike has had a lot of slip-ups and has said some silly things, and, we laugh at some of the stuff that he's done, he's an iconic voice, and I think those people deserve an opportunity to know that this is a moment in history. I mean, it is a moment in history. You have a personality leaving forever. I think they deserve to know that as well from a viewer's perspective. So I kind of felt like people got screwed over on that, and I was a little bit pissed about it. I'm still a little bit pissed about it now. I didn't usually get that angry, but I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me. But anyway, let's move on to the final topic of the show. And this is going to be a way to finish it off on a funny note so that cranky Dennis doesn't ruin everyone's mood. Finally, to round it all off, Damon, the most important question of it all, it looks like Chris Brown and Soulja Boy are set to have a boxing match in March. Soulja Boy has been training with Floyd Mayweather to prepare for this match, and Brown has revealed he's been working with none other than Mike Tyson.
Wow.
Damon, who's winning this one, and will Chris Brown be able to beat Soulja Boy from wall to wall?
I can't believe I'm about to break down a fight between Soulja Boy and Chris Brown. That's interesting. But I'm going with Soulja Boy in this one. I like Soulja Boy to win this fight, not because I have any reason to pick him, but because I think Chris Brown is a scumbag. So I'm going with Soulja Boy to win the fight. It's such everything about this thing is just a sideshow. I don't even know where to start in terms of the guys training them and these two fighting. So, but I'm going to go with Soulja Boy because I think he's less of a scumbag than Chris Brown, and he did include Superman in one of his lyrics. And from a nerdy perspective, I appreciate that. So I'm going to go Soulja Boy in that one.
Gasper, how do you see this exhilarating matchup going? Who do you think's winning this one?
Oh, it's going to be exhilarating. Don't kid yourselves. This kind of the freak show aspect with all these random people seemingly getting involved. It kind of reminds me of like WCW towards the end, where you had like Jay Leno and David Arquette won the title, and Dennis Rodman joined the NWO. You never know who's going to pop up in everybody's corners. I see it like this. I think, well, Chris Brown, he's actually got fighting experience. The court records show that. Meanwhile, Soulja Boy was last seen getting robbed in the hood. I think that's 1-0 Chris. I saw a video of them both throwing punches. Brown looked impressive, but only compared to Data 5000. Soulja Boy was in his bathroom and looked like he'd have the accuracy of Helen Keller. I think Chris is actually quite big. You know, he's a kind of lanky guy, but he's slowly been gaining muscle over the years. Soulja Boy kind of looks like he's preparing for the sequel to The Machinist. I think that Christian Bale's diet in preparation for that movie consisted of a can of tuna and an apple per day. I think Soulja Boy is skipping the tuna and just going for the apple on its own. Seriously, he's so skinny, I could almost see right through him. I don't really particularly care for either of them. Soulja Boy's offended me with his music, while Brown's music I actually don't mind, but he's offended me with his beating of Rihanna. I think Chris takes it, but secretly, not so secretly, I'm hoping for a double knockout. Everybody wins.
Imagine that. That would be great. It's been a while since that's happened. I mean, will they wear their grills into the ring? Well, only one way to find out.
The only thing we can hope for, honestly, the only thing we can hope for, guys, is at the end of like the 5th round or whatever, when this thing just turns into a complete shit show, Gabby Garcia comes running out of the back and just beats both of them at the same exact time, and then she stands over top with her arm held high, and Tyson and Mayweather are too scared to get into the ring with her. That's my ultimate fantasy.
Why is this not happening in Japan? This is such a Japan fight.
I know, but my ultimate fantasy is, what the bullshit's fight happening, no one really gives a fuck. And then the lights go out and you see Conor McGregor in the rafters like Sting. Doesn't really say much, which is strange for Conor, but then he comes down on the thing, points his, I don't know, I guess he'll have some kind of baseball bat, but he's wearing some kind of nice
shillelagh, like fifth
shillelagh, yep. Points it at Mayweather. And then, runs in. And then, I don't know, things go from there. Puts him in the Conor McGregor deathlock. I don't know, maybe he has to do something with, I don't know, like a chair and a nice mink jacket. I don't know what's going to happen. But that is the best way to do it, I feel like, guys. But I mean, who knows in this crazy world of combat sports what's going to happen. But there it is. Submission Radio, first episode for 2017. Damon Martin, thank you so much for coming onto the program. Guys, make sure to follow Damon on Twitter @Damon Martin and check out all of his awesome UFC coverage. Also, the nerdcore movement. I mean, this movement is going strong. Damon, so much happening in the pop culture world, from the new Star Wars to just crazy shit happening with superhero movies all around the place. The new Batman movie looks like it's going to be a disaster. What can people look forward to from nerdcore movement sort of in the next few weeks?
Well, we got all the TV shows are finally starting to come back. It's been kind of slow because everyone takes a winter hiatus. So you got The Flash and Supergirl and all those shows coming back at the end of this month. And you got The Walking Dead coming back. Bates Motel final season starts next month. So a lot of TV shows coming up. And then obviously movie season will be heating up before too long. May is Guardians of the Galaxy, which is going to be amazing. And then, of course, the big one in July, the one I'm most excited about, Spider-Man Homecoming. So, it's going to heat up here. Hopefully heat up soon here in the States, too, because it's cold as hell over here right now in Ohio. So, so lots of good stuff coming up soon.
Well, yeah. Well, I got stung recently watching Passengers with Chris Pratt. Jeez, what a stinker. Someone's going to have to clean out their fridge after that one. But big thanks to Bas Rutten, Dillon Danis, Julianna Pena for being on the program. First episode of 2017. We'll catch you guys next week for more craziness. The episode will be recorded on my birthday, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll catch you guys next week.